Welcome to part 5 of the Unsolved Mysteries Iceberg, where we explore dark and fascinating mysteries. On this iceberg, we deep dive unsolved mysteries, including true crime, myths and legends, strange events, cryptids, urban legends, internet mysteries, and more. Now join me for a trip down the rabbit hole. The disappearance of Tammy Lynn Leppert. Tammy Lynn Leppert was an American model and actress who disappeared in 1983. Born on February 5, 1965, in Rockledge, Florida, she began her career in beauty pageants, winning over hundreds of titles by her late teens. Transitioning to acting, she appeared in several films, including Scarface in 1983, where she played the woman who ended up distracting the lookouts during the infamous chainsaw scene. Leppert's life took a mysterious turn in 1983. Leading up to her disappearance, she exhibited erratic behavior, expressing fears for her safety and alluding to having witnessed something traumatic. This period of distress followed her participation in a weekend party, after which her behavior changed drastically. She became paranoid, refusing to eat or drink from open containers, fearing being poisoned. On the set of Scarface, she witnessed a scene where someone was shot and artificial blood squirted out, which caused her to have a breakdown and flee the set. She did not participate further in filming, though it's unclear to me if she was scheduled for any further scenes. On July 6, 1983, after a heated argument during a drive with a male friend, Leppert exited his car in Cocoa Beach, Florida, and was never seen again. She was 18 years old at the time. The argument, reportedly about her fears and behavior, was the last known interaction she had. Despite extensive searches and public appeals, no credible leads were found. Over the years, theories have surfaced, including connections to organized crime, the drug scene in Florida, and her alleged knowledge of illegal activities in Hollywood. Another theory is that she suffered a psychotic break and met her untimely end as a result of this break. Another theory, perhaps in conjunction with another one of the theories, is that genuinely fearing for her life and the safety of her family, she voluntarily disappeared and began a new life. This theory, of course, becomes less likely with each passing year. However, none of these theories have been substantiated with concrete evidence, and no trace of Tammy has ever been found. Sally McNelly and Shane Stewart. The Sally McNelly and Shane Stewart case is a cold case stemming from events on July 4, 1988, in San Angelo, Texas. Sally McNelly, 18, and Shane Stewart, 17, disappeared after attending a 4th of July fireworks show. Their bodies were discovered months later, in November 1988, near Twin Buttes Reservoir, showing signs of gunshot wounds. The case remains unsolved till this day. However, unlike other cold cases, there are allegations of their involvement in a satanic cult. Throughout their relationship, it was reported by Sally's acquaintances that she and Shane participated in gatherings where occult practices and black magic were observed, suggesting their involvement with a satanic cult. In March of 1988, the same year they disappeared, the couple handed a firearm to the local authorities, claiming it was given to them by a cult member who claimed it was used in a slaying. The police ran the serial number and found it was a stolen weapon. A person of interest was named in 2017, but as of 2024, he has not been arrested, and no one has been charged in relation to the crime. Hypothesizing about the fate of Sally McNelly and Shane Stewart, and considering the context and clues surrounding their disappearance and ending, suggests a number of plausible scenarios. Their involvement with or knowledge of a satanic cult, as indicated by their actions and the statements they made to friends and police, could have placed them in a dangerous position. The couple's decision to return a gun they claimed was used in a crime by cult members to the police could have marked them as threats to the secrecy of the cult's activities. Further, even if the weapon wasn't associated with quote-unquote cult activities, turning it over may still have angered the wrong person. Also, it's plausible that their known association with such a group and their subsequent actions led to them being targeted to prevent any further exposure of the cult's activities, or to serve as a warning to others within the group against betrayal. That said, their slayings don't seem to have a particularly ritualistic element, and I would suspect members of a satanic cult committing such a heinous act would do so in a ritualistic way. Given the lack of concrete evidence and the myriad of unanswered questions, it's also possible that their involvement with the cult has been overstated or misinterpreted. They may have just upset the wrong person at the 4th of July celebrations, leading to their fates. Indrid Cold. Indrid Cold, also known as the Smiling Man, is a figure associated with UFO and paranormal phenomena, first reported in the 1960s in West Virginia. The most notable encounter with Indrid Cold occurred on November 2, 1966, when a salesman named Woodrow Derenberger claimed to have met him on Interstate 77 near Parkersburg, West Virginia. According to Derenberger, Cold emerged from a UFO-like craft that landed on the highway in front of his vehicle. Cold was described as a humanoid male with dark hair, over 6 feet tall, and wearing a reflective metallic outfit. He communicated telepathically. His mouth did not move, yet Derenberger heard him as if through spoken word. Cold introduced himself and asked questions about the area, expressing curiosity about Earth's environment and humanity. After the encounter, Derenberger reported ongoing communications with Cold, detailing these experiences in a book titled Visitors from Lanulos, co-written with Harold W. Hubbard. Derenberger claimed Cold was from a planet called Lanulos, near the galaxy of Ganymedes. Following Derenberger's initial report, other sightings and communications with beings claiming to be Indrid Cold or associated entities were reported across the United States. These encounters often shared similar characteristics: communication through telepathy, descriptions of Cold as friendly or benign, and discussions that suggested an extraterrestrial interest in Earth and its people. Critics and skeptics question the validity of Derenberger's experiences, pointing to the lack of physical evidence and the fantastical nature of his claims. Some suggest that the Cold encounters were hoaxes, delusions, or misinterpretations of mundane experiences. However, believers in the paranormal or extraterrestrial life cite the consistency in descriptions of Cold and the sincerity of Derenberger and other witnesses as reasons to consider the encounters as genuine unexplained phenomena. Indrid Cold's story intersects with the broader context of the 1960s, a period marked by a surge in UFO sightings and an increasing public interest in extraterrestrial life. The Mothman Prophecies, a book by John Keel published in 1975, later adapted into a film in 2002, further popularized the story of Indrid Cold. Keel connected Cold with the Mothman sightings in Point Pleasant, West Virginia, suggesting a link between different paranormal phenomena. Although critics say that Keel's work is speculative and blends various unverified accounts, it has played a significant role in cementing the legend of Indrid Cold in the cultural imagination. I note that accounts of Indrid Cold seem to have become very popular in the last decade or so, likely due to the character being an easy, creepy stock character to fit in a creepypasta type story. Bela Kiss. Bela Kiss was a Hungarian serial slayer, born in 1877, who gained notoriety for the gruesome discovery of over 20 bodies hidden in metal drums on his property in a suburb of Budapest after his disappearance in 1916. Before his crimes came to light, Kiss lived as a tinsmith, presenting himself as a respectable, though solitary figure in the community. Kiss began placing advertisements in newspapers seeking lonely women seeking a fortune teller. Corresponding with numerous women, he lured them to his home under the guise of marriage advice or financial assistance. It is during this period that he committed his slayings by deceiving and then ending his victims, whose bodies he preserved in alcohol within sealed metal drums stored on his property. Kiss was called up for service in World War I in 1914. In 1916, during a planned renovation of Bela Kiss's rented property, the landlord discovered 7 sealed tin drums containing the bodies of female victims, initiating a horrifying investigation. Kiss, having joined the war effort in 1914, was absent, leading to speculation about his whereabouts. The landlord informed the authorities, who discovered a total of 24 bodies at Kiss's residence, revealing a gruesome pattern of behavior. Investigators discovered books on poisons and strangulation, along with the victims' bodies preserved in alcohol and drained of blood, suggesting that Kiss might have practiced vampirism. Efforts to capture Kiss were complicated by his apparently common name and the uncertainty of his status as possibly deceased or a prisoner of war. Over the years, there were numerous sightings of him across the world, including in the Turkish army, in France, in Serbia, and in New York City, but none were confirmed. The Hungarian police and later law enforcement officials in various jurisdictions pursued leads without success. The mystery of his final whereabouts and fate remains unsolved, adding to the infamy of his crimes. My hypothesis on this one is that Bela Kiss likely saw or heard of a newspaper report describing his crimes while he was on the front, and deserted at that point, leaving behind his old identity. Supporting this hypothesis, an individual in the French Foreign Legion was identified as potentially being Bela Kiss. However, this individual deserted the Legion prior to investigation and was never found. Alternatively, 2 years passed between Bela Kiss's enlistment in the Austro-Hungarian army and the finding of the corpses. These were, to put it mildly, not easy years to be on the front, and it's very possible that he perished on the field of battle, contracted a fatal disease, or died in a prisoner of war camp. The Beast of Givaudan. The Beast of Givaudan refers to a series of violent attacks on humans between 1764 and 1767 in southern France. Over 100 deaths were attributed to the beast. In the mid-18th century, Givaudan was a remote, rugged area. The attacks began in June 1764, when a young woman reported being attacked by a beast she described as looking like a wolf, yet not a wolf. The first recorded fatality occurred shortly after. Reports described the beast as having formidable teeth and immense tail, with red and black fur. The series of attacks created widespread panic. Victims were often killed by throat bites, and some reports suggested the beast displayed unusual behavior, not typical of wolves. King Louis XV took a personal interest in the attacks, sending professional wolf hunters, soldiers, and volunteers to hunt down the beast. Despite extensive hunts, rewards, and the deployment of hundreds of men, the attacks continued. In 1765, Jean-Charles Marc-Antoine Vaumesle d'Enneval, a famous wolf hunter, was appointed to kill the beast. He brought with him 8 bloodhounds, specially trained in wolf hunting. Also, what a ridiculously cool name. I hope I pronounced that one somewhat correct. Despite killing several large and threatening wolves, the attacks did not stop. Later, the king sent Lieutenant of the Hunt, François Antoine, who also had little initial success. However, in September 1765, Antoine killed a large gray wolf, suspected to be responsible for the attacks. It was sent to Versailles and officially declared as the beast. Yet, the attacks continued after its death, disproving this claim. The attacks decreased and eventually stopped by June 1767. The last known attack was linked to a large wolf, shot by a local hunter. Speculations about the beast's identity include a wolf, a hyena, a lion, a prehistoric animal, or a human killer using a pack of trained wolf-dog hybrids. The latter theory also suggests that the creature or creatures may have been armored war dogs or armored wolf-dog hybrids. However, the lack of concrete evidence and the sensational nature of eyewitness accounts make it difficult to ascertain the beast's true identity. The death of Sonny Liston. Sonny Liston, the heavyweight boxing champion renowned for his fights with Muhammad Ali, was found dead under mysterious circumstances in his Las Vegas home in January 1971. Officially, the cause of death was listed as heart failure, but suspicions and theories abound, pointing to foul play. Liston's career was shadowed by allegations of connections to the mob, a troubled personal life, and controversies inside and outside the ring. His rise to fame was as dramatic as his fall, with these alleged ties to organized crime that reportedly influenced his boxing career. The discovery of Liston's body, decomposed, suggested he had been dead for several days before being found. The initial cause of death pointed to natural causes. However, several inconsistencies and questions emerged. One theory suggests Liston's death was due to an overdose of an intravenous drug, either accidentally or deliberately. Friends and family contested the idea that Liston was a drug user, raising doubts about an accidental overdose. Further, his trainer and his wife confirmed that he was deathly afraid of needles. His trainer in particular confirmed that Liston had to cancel a lucrative African tour due to a refusal to get shots. Another theory implicates the mob. Given Liston's alleged associations and debts to organized crime figures, some speculate his death was a professional job ordered by the mob, possibly due to these debts, or for trying to distance himself from their influence. This theory is supported by Liston's fear for his life in the months leading up to his death, as reported by those close to him. The final theory is that he was supposed to take a fall in a fight 6 months prior to his demise. He didn't do so, and under this theory, cost underworld figures significant sums of money, leading to a contract being taken out on him. Fresno Nightcrawlers. The Fresno Nightcrawlers are cryptids that have gained attention primarily through video footage showing small white bipedal figures in Fresno, California. These entities appear to be relatively short, with most of their height attributed to their legs, possessing a small or non-existent torso and no discernible arms. The first known footage of these creatures dates back to the 2010, captured by a Fresno resident who was alerted by his dogs barking at night. Upon reviewing the security tapes, the homeowner observed 2 strange figures moving across his lawn. The figures were described as having a smooth, white surface, with the larger one being approximately 4 feet in height, and the smaller one around 3 feet. The video was later aired on a local TV station, sparking public interest. A second significant piece of evidence came from Yosemite National Park, located several hours north of Fresno. This footage showed creatures resembling the original Fresno Nightcrawlers, further fueling speculation and debate about their existence and nature. As you can see, the Yosemite footage is particularly haunting. Note the uncanny movements of these potential creatures. Various theories have been proposed regarding the nature of the Fresno Nightcrawlers. Some suggest they are extraterrestrial beings, given their non-human appearance and movement. Others propose they could be a new species, paranormal entities, or even elaborate hoaxes. Some have also proposed that they could be figures from Native American lore. I have no strong opinion on what these creatures are, but I would love to find out. If anyone has a good theory on the Fresno Nightcrawlers, let me know in the comments below. Alien Big Cats. Alien big cats, also known as ABCs or phantom cats, refer to sightings of large, non-native felids in environments outside their indigenous range. These reports come from various parts of the world, including the United Kingdom, Australia, and the United States. Alien big cats often resemble panthers, cougars, or leopards, animals not typically found in these locations. The origin of alien big cat sightings can be traced back to various factors. One explanation suggests that some of these animals were once pets, or part of private collections, and were intentionally released into the wild by their owners. Another factor contributing to the alien big cats phenomenon is the escape of animals from zoos, circuses, or private collections. A famous example was a mountain lion, native to North America, discovered in Scotland in 1980. I note that sightings of big cats such as lions or tigers appear to be rare, with smaller big cats seeming to make up the vast majority of the sightings. Ball lightning. Ball lightning is a rare and unexplained atmospheric phenomenon that appears as luminous, spherical lighting balls, which can vary in size from smaller than a pea to several meters in diameter. Unlike the common linear lightning bolt, ball lightning is reported to last longer, sometimes up to several seconds, and can move, including hovering in the air or bouncing along the ground. It often appears during thunderstorms, but has also been reported in clear weather. Descriptions of its color vary, with reports of orange, yellow, blue, and even white orbs. The cause of ball lightning remains a topic of debate among scientists, with several theories proposed but no definitive explanation. One theory suggests it's a form of plasma, where gases in the air ionize to create a glowing ball. Another theory proposes that ball lightning is the result of silicon vaporizing from the soil when regular lightning strikes the earth. The vapor could then condense into a fine dust, which becomes electrified and glows, forming ball lightning. Another theory suggests that ball lightning is a collective epileptic seizure caused by a rapidly changing magnetic field. Of course, this does not account for ball lightning events caught on camera. There are myriad theories on the cause of ball lightning. The only thing scientists appear to be able to agree upon is that it is most definitely a real phenomenon. Personally, I've always wanted to see ball lightning, but as yet I haven't had the opportunity. If you've had experiences with ball lightning, I would really appreciate if you would write out your account of the event in the comments below. Seriously, I love a good ball lightning encounter. The smiley face killer. The smiley face killer theory suggests that a series of unsolved deaths of young men across the United States, primarily from the late 1990s to the 2010s, are not accidental drownings or consensual endings, but the actions of one or more serial slayers. This theory is named for the smiley face graffiti, found near some locations where victims' bodies were found, hinting at a potential signature. Victims fitting a specific profile, young, white, athletic, and outwardly successful men last seen leaving parties or bars, were found dead in water, sometimes weeks after disappearing. These incidents span multiple states, including Minnesota, Wisconsin, New York, and Ohio, suggesting a pattern that some believe points to a serial killer. However, the theory is not widely accepted and faces significant skepticism. Critics point out the lack of direct evidence linking the deaths to a criminal, suggesting the graffiti's commonality makes it coincidental. They argue that the statistical likelihood of such accidents among the demographic of young men drinking is not unusual and does not necessarily indicate a serial killer's involvement. Accusations of confirmation bias have been leveled at the theory's proponents, who are seen as focusing only on evidence that supports their hypothesis. Law enforcement agencies, including the FBI, have found insufficient evidence to support the theory, maintaining that these are unrelated incidents. The disappearance of Brian Schaffer. Brian Schaffer, a 27-year-old medical student at Ohio State University, vanished on April 1, 2006. The mysterious circumstances have captivated the public since. On the night of his disappearance, Schaffer went out to celebrate the beginning of spring break with friends, visiting the Ugly Tuna Saloon, a bar in Columbus, Ohio. Despite extensive review of surveillance footage from the area, Brian was seen entering the bar, but never seen leaving. The night began with Schaffer and a friend embarking on a bar crawl, ultimately ending up at the Ugly Tuna Saloon. Surveillance cameras captured Brian outside the bar around 2 a.m., talking briefly with two women before re-entering the venue. This is the last confirmed sighting of Schaffer. Notably, all other patrons were accounted for on the surveillance footage, leaving or entering the bar, except for Brian. This discrepancy has fueled theories ranging from a possible hidden exit to foul play inside the bar. Despite exhaustive searches and public appeals for information, no significant leads have emerged. Brian's cell phone, credit cards, and bank accounts have shown no activity since the night he disappeared. The lack of evidence or clues as to his whereabouts has made this case particularly baffling. Adding to the mystery, Schaffer's girlfriend continued to call him every night for months after his disappearance, and the phone always went to voicemail. However, on one occasion, the call rang 3 times, rather than going to voicemail. No satisfactory explanation was ever provided for this, other than the fact that it may have been a glitch. Also, some speculate that he may have been slain by the smiley face perpetrator discussed in the previous entry. That said, there's no evidence whatsoever to suggest this. Importantly, police are still actively investigating the case and have a series of theories which they believe to be credible. However, the police have not discussed these theories with the public so as to maintain the integrity of the investigation. Personally, I really hope Brian Schaffer is still alive and that he disguised himself in the Ugly Tuna Saloon before exiting and making his escape. Perhaps he realized that medical school wasn't for him, and he felt that he was too deep in debt to back out and left to start a new life. That said, I have no evidence to support this, and it's pure conjecture on my part. But hey, you knew you were going to get some conjecture when you clicked on an Unsolved Mysteries Iceberg video, didn't you? Okay, let me take a quick moment here to plug my channel. So you've made it this far. Take a quick moment to hit the like button, the subscribe button, and that notification bell. I really appreciate it, and it helps my channel grow and helps me devote more time to content creation. Also, the Lazy Chill Zone Discord community is always growing, so hit the link in the description to join up. Also calling all Chads and Chadettes, join up on the Patreon or the YouTube membership. Both links are in the description. Now back to our iceberg. The Bosnian pyramid claims revolve around a series of structures near Visoko, Bosnia and Herzegovina, which some believe to be ancient man-made pyramids. The primary structure, dubbed the Bosnian Pyramid of the Sun, along with others labeled as the Pyramid of the Moon, Dragon, Earth, and Love, have been the center of controversy since their introduction by Samir Osmanagic in 2005. Osmanagic asserts that these are the oldest and largest pyramids on Earth, suggesting a date of construction around 12,000 years ago. This would significantly precede known ancient civilizations capable of such feats. Critics, including archaeologists and geologists, argue that the hills are natural formations known as flatirons, and that there's no evidence to support the claim of them being constructed pyramids. Despite this, Osmanagic and his supporters have undertaken excavations at the site, claiming to find man-made tunnels, stone blocks, and ancient writing, although these findings have not been validated by independent experts or recognized archaeological institutions. The geological composition of the hills matches that of natural sedimentary rocks, with layers formed horizontally. Second, the lack of any documented tools, artifacts, or remnants of a civilization capable of building such structures raises significant doubts about the man-made hypothesis. Despite skepticism from the scientific community, the pyramid claims have boosted tourism in Visoko, with visitors coming to see the sites and participate in related activities. Osmanagic has also established a foundation to support ongoing research and excavation efforts, further promoting the idea of the Bosnian pyramids as a significant archaeological and historical discovery. Personally, I just don't see anything here. There's no evidence that these hills are pyramids whatsoever, and a ton of evidence that they're just normal hills. Sometimes a slightly weird-looking hill is still just a hill. The Tegan Incident. Sadamichi Hirasawa, a Japanese painter turned notorious criminal, became infamous for his role in the Tegan Incident, one of Japan's most well-known criminal cases. On January 26, 1948, in Tokyo's Shinamachi district, a man posing as a public health official entered a branch of Teikoku Bank, also known as Tegan for short. Claiming to be dispatched by U.S. occupation authorities to inoculate bank employees against a dysentery outbreak, he duped 16 bank employees and family members into drinking a solution purported to be a vaccine. The solution, however, was laced with cyanide, leading to the deaths of 12 individuals, with 4 survivors suffering severe poisoning effects. The perpetrator left with a very small amount of cash, suggesting robbery was not the motivation for this heinous act. Sadamichi Hirasawa, a relatively unknown painter, became a prime suspect months later, largely due to his supposed connection to the poison used in the crime. Hirasawa's arrest was precipitated by his own actions. He had written a series of suspicious checks, which drew police attention. Further investigation revealed Hirasawa's interest in chemicals, specifically poisons, which he claimed was for his art. His detailed knowledge about cyanide and inconsistent alibis led to his arrest for the slayings. Further yet, he possessed a similar amount in cash to the money stolen. I suppose the serial numbers of the money weren't known, but if they were, presumably these could have been used to determine if the cash he possessed was the stolen cash. Hirasawa went on trial. He maintained his innocence throughout, claiming he was framed and that his confessions were coerced through torture and intimidation, a claim supported by some human rights groups and legal experts. Despite the lack of physical evidence directly linking Hirasawa to the crime scene and the deaths, he was convicted solely based on circumstantial evidence and his confessions. The trial highlighted the reliance on confessions in the Japanese legal system, raising questions about the fairness of such practices. I note that this emphasis on confessions is strongly present in all legal systems influenced by the Confucian tradition, such as Japan's. The verdict was a death sentence, but Hirasawa would never face this penalty. To complete the process, the Minister of Justice would need to sign the warrant to complete the act. However, this was never done. Doubts about his guilt and the trial's fairness led to numerous appeals and retrials. However, all appeals were ultimately rejected, and Hirasawa remained on death row until his death from natural causes in 1987 at the age of 95. The case remains one of Japan's most enduring mysteries, with Hirasawa's guilt still questioned by many. The Axeman of New Orleans. The Axeman of New Orleans was a serial slayer who terrorized the city between 1918 and 1919. The individual's identity remains unknown to this day. The spree began on May 23, 1918, when Joseph and Catherine Maggio were brutally slain in their home. The killer used their own axe, which he left at the scene, marking the beginning of a series of similar attacks. Over the next year, several more attacks occurred. Some victims survived, while others did not. One of the most peculiar aspects of the case was a letter purportedly from the Axeman, published in a local newspaper on March 13, 1919. The letter, purportedly sent from hell, stated that the Axeman would kill again at 15 minutes past midnight on March 19th, but would spare the occupants of any place where a jazz band was playing. That night, jazz music filled the air of New Orleans as residents sought to avoid becoming the next victims. The axemen's attacks were characterized by the use of an axe or razor, often belonging to the victims themselves, and the removal of panels or doors to gain entry into the homes, indicating premeditation. Despite the intense fear and significant police efforts, the axeman was never caught or identified, and the slayings ceased as mysteriously as they had begun. Several theories have been proposed regarding the axeman's identity and motives. One theory suggests the activities were the work of a mafia professional, given the targeting of Italian Americans, which some speculated could have been warnings or punishments. Another theory posits that the axeman was mentally ill, possibly believing himself to be a supernatural entity, which could explain the bizarre letter to the press and the seemingly random selection of victims. Some have speculated that the axeman might have been a sadistic individual who enjoyed the fear and notoriety his crimes generated, seeing the city's reaction to his letter as a form of manipulation and control. There's also a theory that the slayings were not the work of one person, but several individuals with similar methods, possibly inspired by the initial crimes or using the axeman's MO to cover their unrelated slayings. Investigative efforts at the time were hampered by the lack of forensic technology and the chaotic nature of crime scene investigations, which often led to contaminated evidence and conflicting eyewitness accounts. The intense media coverage and public hysteria also contributed to a circus-like atmosphere around the case, making it difficult for law enforcement to sift through rumors and sensationalized reports to find actionable leads. Muhammad XII of Granada. Muhammad XII, also known as Boabdil, was the last Nasrid ruler of the Emirate of Granada in Spain. His reign ended when Granada capitulated to the Catholic monarchs, Ferdinand II of Aragon and Isabella I of Castile, in 1492, marking the conclusion of the Reconquista. Following his surrender, Muhammad was exiled and eventually settled in North Africa. The exact location of Muhammad's final resting place remains uncertain, with historical sources providing conflicting information. However, it is widely believed that he spent his last years in the region near the Algerian city of Tlemcen. Some accounts suggest that he died there and was buried in the city or its surroundings. Other sources suggest that he was buried in a tomb located in Fez, in Morocco. Despite this, the precise location of his grave has not been identified, and no monument or memorial exists to mark his burial site conclusively. The Kaz 2 incident. The Kaz 2 disappearance, also known as the Ghost Yacht, is a maritime mystery that occurred in April 2007. The Kaz 2, a 30-foot catamaran, was found adrift off the coast of Australia with its 3 crew members, Derek Batten, 56, Peter Tunstead, 69, and James Tunstead, 63, missing. Despite extensive searches, they were never found, leading to widespread speculation about their fate. The yacht embarked from Airlie Beach, Queensland, on April 15, 2007, heading for Townsville, Queensland, as part of a longer voyage to Western Australia. The last known contact with the crew was on April 15th. On April 18th, the Kaz 2 was spotted adrift by a helicopter, but initial observation efforts were hampered by bad weather. It was not until April 20th that authorities boarded the seemingly deserted yacht, approximately 160 kilometers east of Townsville. The scene aboard the Kaz 2 was puzzling. The yacht was in good condition with its engine running, a laptop turned on, a full table of food and utensils set out, and personal belongings in place. The only signs of anything amiss were a small tear in the mainsail and a missing dinghy, later found deflated and partially submerged near the yacht. Investigations did not indicate foul play or a struggle on board. The weather report showed conditions were relatively calm during the crew's disappearance. The official coroner's report, released in 2008, concluded that the men likely fell overboard in an accident and drowned. The report suggested that one crew member might have fallen into the water while attempting to free a fishing line, or during a mishap with the yacht's small dinghy, with the others subsequently falling in while trying to rescue him. The yacht, left on autopilot, continued on its course, leaving no chance for the men to get back on board. No evidence of deliberate disappearance or any form of misconduct has ever been found. Another popular theory is that the men were swept away by a rogue wave. However, there's no evidence for this. The Roswell Incident. The Roswell crash refers to an event that took place in July 1947 near Roswell, New Mexico, where an unidentified flying object reportedly crashed on a ranch. The U.S. military initially announced they had recovered a flying disc, but this statement was quickly retracted, claiming it was merely a weather balloon. Over the years, this incident has fueled widespread speculation and theories about UFOs and extraterrestrial life, becoming a cornerstone of UFO lore. On July 8, 1947, Roswell Army Airfield issued a press release stating they had recovered a flying disc from a ranch near Roswell. The story made headlines, sparking immediate public interest. However, the excitement was short-lived. The next day, Brigadier General Roger Ramey, commander of the 8th Air Force, held a press conference in Fort Worth, Texas, where debris from the crash was presented as a weather balloon with a radar reflector, debunking the initial flying disc claim. In the 1990s, the U.S. government disclosed that the debris found was part of Project Mogul, a top-secret military project aimed at detecting Soviet atomic bomb tests. The project involved high-altitude balloons equipped with microphones to capture sound waves generated by explosions, apparently explaining the unusual materials found at the crash site. This unusual revelation was intended to close the case on the Roswell incident, but it only fueled further speculation. There are numerous competing theories as to what happened at Roswell. However, I'll stick to the two most credible here, since the Roswell incident is a massive rabbit hole in and of itself. One of the most popular theories is that the object that crashed was an alien spacecraft, and the bodies of extraterrestrials were recovered from the wreckage. This theory was bolstered by various witnesses and insiders who came forward over the years, with stories of recovered alien bodies and advanced technology. Proponents argue that the military's quick retraction of the initial flying disc statement and subsequent secrecy surrounding the incident are evidence of a cover-up. Another theory suggests that the crashed object was a secret military test craft, possibly part of Project Mogul or another classified project. Advocates of this theory point to the era's intense research into advanced aviation technology, including experimental aircraft and balloons for espionage or nuclear monitoring. They argue that the military's secrecy and the later explanation of Project Mogul are consistent with practices of protecting classified projects. The only thing that can be said with certain about the Roswell crash is that something did indeed crash, and there was a subsequent government cover-up. The Baltic Sea Anomaly. The Baltic Sea Anomaly refers to a mysterious object discovered at the bottom of the Baltic Sea in 2011 by a Swedish treasure hunting team, Ocean X. The object, resembling a massive, flattened dome sitting atop a pillar, including features that look like ramps, stairways, and other structures not typically found in natural geological formations, sparked global interest and speculation about its origins. The discovery occurred on June 19, 2011, when sonar scans revealed an unusual 60-meter diameter circular formation resting at a depth of about 90 meters. The images showed a structure with apparent hard angles and symmetries, uncommon in natural objects, leading to a flurry of theories about its origin. Suggestions ranged from a sunken UFO, an ancient monument, to remnants of a prehistoric civilization. Ocean X's initial descriptions and released sonar images fueled speculation, with comparisons made to the fictional Millennium Falcon spacecraft from Star Wars. The team reported equipment malfunctions when near the anomaly, adding to the mystery and speculation about electromagnetic interference, further suggesting non-natural origins. Subsequent expeditions to the site attempted to clarify the nature of the object. Divers and remote-controlled submarines took samples and photographs. These investigations revealed that the anomaly sits on a rock formation covered in silt. The structure itself is composed of a type of basalt rock. Samples indicated no materials that would suggest an extraterrestrial or artificial origin. The supposed runways and stairs appear to be natural geological formations, possibly shaped by glacial and post-glacial processes. Scientific analysis leans towards the anomaly being a natural feature. Geologists suggest it might be a glacial deposit left behind by retreating glaciers from the last ice age. In 2019, an individual associated with Ocean X indicated there was the possibility of a further expedition to the site of the anomaly. However, as of 2024, this has yet to happen, and there have been no further updates. Personally, I'm skeptical about the Baltic Sea anomaly's more fantastical origins, and had it been truly extraordinary, there would have been extensive, global scientific investigation. The lack of ongoing serious research from the scientific community suggests it's likely a natural formation, not the sensational discovery some have speculated. Also, the team behind the Baltic Sea anomaly appears to have been very interested in a television show around the undersea feature, suggesting a financial motive to make the anomaly appear more mysterious than it actually is. That said, of course, a financial motive does not automatically discredit anything. Cleveland Torso Slayer. The Cleveland Torso Slayer was a notorious serial killer who terrorized Cleveland, Ohio during the 1930s. Also known as the Mad Butcher of Kingsbury Run, the killer targeted marginalized individuals, leaving behind a trail too gruesome to discuss in this forum. Between 1935 and 1938, the killer claimed at least 13 victims, although the actual number may be higher. The victims, mostly drifters and transient individuals, were slain in such a way so as to meticulously remove any identifying features, leaving behind only torso remains. The activities occurred in the impoverished area of Kingsbury Run, known for its shanty towns and transient population. The killer operated with impunity, taking advantage of the transient nature of the area's inhabitants. The investigation into the crime spree faced significant issues. Limited forensic technology and the killer's meticulous methods hindered progress. Additionally, the transient nature of the victims made it difficult to establish connections or motives. Elliot Ness, famous for his role in bringing down Al Capone during Prohibition, also played a significant role in the case. In 1935, Ness was appointed as Cleveland's public safety director, tasked with cleaning up the city's corrupt police force and tackling organized crime. With the serial killer terrorizing Cleveland, Ness took personal interest in the case, viewing it as an opportunity to showcase his law enforcement prowess. However, even Ness, the famed lawman, was unable to make any meaningful progress into the case, and his inability to solve the case has made this case all the more mysterious. The torso slayings sparked widespread fear and speculation. Rumors of a deranged butcher preying on the vulnerable fueled public hysteria. Residents of Kingsbury Run lived in constant fear, wary of becoming the next victim of the elusive killer. The investigation received national attention, with newspapers sensationalizing the case and speculating on the killer's motives. However, the sensationalism did little to aid the investigation, and the killer continued to evade capture. In 1938, the torso slayings abruptly ceased, leaving behind a legacy of fear and unanswered questions. The killer's identity remains one of the greatest unsolved mysteries in American criminal history. The investigation produced several suspects over the years, but none were definitively linked to the crimes. One of the most notorious suspects was Dr. Francis E. Sweeney, a physician with a troubled past who had been discharged from the military for mental instability. Sweeney had a connection to one of the victims and reportedly confessed to the slayings while institutionalized, but his confession was deemed unreliable due to his mental state. Adding to the confusion, Dr. Sweeney was a close relative of one of Eliot Ness's political opponents, and there is a speculation that Ness's focus on Dr. Sweeney may have had political undertones. Another suspect was Frank Dolezal, a bricklayer with a history of violence who was arrested for assaulting a woman in Kingsbury Run. Dolezal had a violent temper and was known to frequent the area where many of the bodies were found, leading some to suspect him of involvement. However, no concrete evidence was ever found to link him to the crimes. There's also the theory that the slayings were not the work of a single person. The copycat theory posits that the killings may not have been the work of a single serial killer, but rather multiple individuals inspired by the initial crimes. This perspective suggests that after the first few crimes garnered significant attention, others may have committed similar crimes, potentially using the initial cases as cover for their own crimes. The Tokyo Metropolitan Slayings. This unsolved mystery, known as the Tokyo Metropolitan Slayings, involves the deaths of 10 individuals across Chiba, Saitama, and Tokyo between 1968 and 1974. The perpetrator's method was brutal, attacking women who lived alone, committing unspeakable assaults, then slaying them at midnight before disposing of their bodies in a graphic manner. The case took a significant turn on September 12, 1974, when Etsuo Ono, a 37-year-old construction worker with a history of criminal activities, was arrested under suspicion of theft. His past, filled with stints in prison for theft, burglary, grievous bodily harm, and arson, which in the eyes of the Tokyo police made him a prime suspect in the slayings. Ono had previously attempted to violate a woman in Tokyo, had a blood type matching the perpetrator, and was familiar with the areas where the crimes occurred. He had weak alibis, and his history of using ladders for crimes paralleled the perpetrator's methods, leading the media to prematurely brand him the killer. Ono was allegedly tortured into signing a confession and was convicted of all 10 slayings. Initially convicted and sentenced to life in 1986, Ono's case was revisited on appeal in 1991. Doubts about his confession and the lack of solid evidence led to his acquittal. Once released, Ono was celebrated nationwide as a wrongfully accused man who fought for his freedom, and presumably after this 20-year ordeal, he was on the straight and narrow, right? But wait, there's more. In 1996, Ono ended a woman's life and disposed of her body in the same manner as the Tokyo Metropolitan Killer did, strongly calling into question whether he had been the perpetrator all along. To me, Ono's involvement in the Tokyo Metropolitan slayings seems plausible due to several compelling reasons. His criminal background, characterized by a pattern of violent and invasive behavior, aligns with the modus operandi of the slayings. Ono's history of burglary, SA, and arson demonstrates a predisposition to the types of crimes associated with the slayings. His blood type, O negative, matches the presumed blood type of the killer, a rare characteristic that further narrows the suspect pool. Further, he committed a virtually identical slaying after his release from prison, for which he was convicted. Victorio Peak Treasure. The Victorio Peak Treasure is a legendary trove rumored to be hidden inside Victorio Peak, in what is now White Sands Missile Range, New Mexico. Stories of gold and other valuables buried or concealed within the peak have circulated since the 1930s, sparking interest, controversy, and numerous expeditions, yet the treasure, if it exists, remains elusive. The tale begins in 1937, when a man named Milton Doc Noss went hunting on Victoria Peak and stumbled upon a hidden entrance leading to a complex of tunnels and rooms. Inside, Noss claimed to find a vast quantity of gold bars, coins, jewels, and historical artifacts. According to Noss, the treasure was part of a larger cache accumulated by a Mexican general in the 19th century, hidden away in the peak's caverns. Others have suggested that the treasure is associated with Emperor Maximilian of Mexico, the Austrian duke who was placed on the Mexican throne through from 1864 to 1867. Intent on capitalizing on his find, Noss began extracting gold bars, planning to sell them. However, his efforts were marked by secrecy and suspicion. In 1939, in an attempt to enlarge the entrance to the cave for easier access to the treasure, an explosion collapsed the entrance, reportedly sealing the treasure inside. In 1949, Noss was killed by an associate in a dispute over the treasure. Interest in the Victoria Peak treasure surged again in the 1950s when the U.S. government expanded the White Sands Missile Range, encompassing Victoria Peak and restricting access. The Noss family and other claimants argued for the right to search for the treasure, leading to a series of government-sanctioned expeditions from the 1960s to the 1990s. These expeditions, despite extensive efforts and the use of modern technology, failed to uncover substantial evidence of the treasure's existence. Skeptics argue that the Victoria Peak treasure is a myth, suggesting Noss exaggerated or fabricated his discovery for fame or financial gain. Others believe the treasure was real but was removed or hidden elsewhere, possibly by government intervention. The lack of concrete evidence and the now restricted access to Victoria Peak have fueled speculation and conspiracy theories. Given that the U.S. Army has granted special access to the family and others to search for the treasure after the site was incorporated into the White Sands Missile Range test site, I have to believe there must be significant evidence to suggest this treasure is more fact than fiction. The Idle Warriors, Lee Harvey Oswald. The Idle Warriors is a novel written by Carrie Thornley that holds the unique distinction of being about Lee Harvey Oswald before the assassination of President John F. Kennedy in 1963. Thornley, who served alongside Oswald in the Marine Corps in the late 1950s, based the protagonist of his book on Oswald, drawing from his personal observations and interactions with him. Written and completed before the assassination, the novel offers an unintended pre-assassination psychological portrait of Oswald. Thornley began working on The Idle Warriors during a period when Oswald had defected to the Soviet Union, a move that intrigued and puzzled many, including Thornley. The book explores themes of disillusionment with the U.S. government and military, as well as the protagonist's defection to a foreign nation, mirroring Oswald's real-life actions. Although the novel is a work of fiction, its characters' experiences and sentiments were directly inspired by Oswald's behavior and ideologies, as perceived by Thornley. The manuscript gained notoriety after Kennedy's assassination, due to its author's direct connection to Oswald and the coincidental pre-assassination creation. Despite this intrigue, The Idle Warriors was never published during Thornley's lifetime, as the Warren Commission subpoenaed and held the manuscript. The book itself was not published until 1991. Due to his writing about Oswald prior to the assassination, the Warren Commission, which examined the JFK incident, called upon him to testify. Oh, and Thornley also founded Discordianism, which is either considered a parody of religion or a legitimate religious belief system based upon chaos. Yeah, sometimes truth is stranger than fiction. Time dilation and alien visitation. Alien beings traveling across the universe within their lifetime is theoretically possible due to time dilation, a consequence of Einstein's theory of relativity. As a spaceship accelerates to near light speeds, time on board slows relative to their home planet. This means while only a few years or less pass for the travelers, billions of years can pass on their home planet, or at their destination. With advanced propulsion systems and life support technology, alien life forms could embark on interstellar journeys, experiencing distant worlds firsthand, including traveling across the universe. Given the phenomenon of time dilation, extraterrestrial visitors could actually be billions of years old, without adjusting for the time dilation factor. Talk about ancient aliens. Nozomi Momoi. Nozomi Momoi was a Japanese blue movie actress whose death in 2002 shocked the industry and her fans. And yes, in case you're wondering, blue movie is a YouTube-friendly term for a certain type of film, and it does mean what you think it does. Born in Tokyo in 1978, Momoi entered the film scene in the late 1990s, gaining popularity for her abilities. Nozomi was a certified rising star when she met a tragic end in Nagano Prefecture on October 12, 2002. Her body was found in a burnt-out vehicle with a male friend. The situation was initially suspected to be a pact between Nozomi and her friend, with the theory suggesting that her companion ended Nozomi before consensually ending himself by setting himself on fire inside the car. In a significant development in October 2006, a civil court in Nagano ruled that the deaths of Nozomi and her companion were the result of a slaying by an unidentified third party. Despite this ruling, there has been no further advancement in solving the criminal aspect of the case. A number of theories have emerged over the years. Some speculate about potential involvement from the Yakuza, given the film industry's rumored connections to such entities in Japan. Another theory suggests the potential involvement of a deranged fan. However, at this point, all theories remain speculative. The Loch Ness Monster. The Loch Ness Monster, often referred to as Nessie, is a cryptid said to inhabit Loch Ness, a large freshwater lake in the Scottish Highlands. Reports of sightings allegedly date back millennia, with accounts describing a large serpentine creature resembling a plesiosaur or other prehistoric marine reptile. The earliest known account of a creature resembling the Loch Ness Monster dates back to the 6th century. According to legend, in 565 AD, the Irish monk Saint Columba encountered the creature while on a mission in Scotland. The creature reportedly attacked a man swimming in the river, but Columba intervened, invoking the name of God to banish the creature, which then retreated into the depths. This account, found in the biography of Saint Columba, written around the time of Saint Columba's life, is often cited as one of the earliest references to a mysterious creature inhabiting Loch Ness. That said, accounts of saints engaging in combat with beasts, nature, or representatives of evil are extremely common and are generally not taken to be historically valid accounts. In the 19th century, reports of unusual creatures in Loch Ness began to start appearing in the historical record. The first modern sighting of Nessie occurred in 1933, when a couple claimed to have seen a large creature resembling a dragon or prehistoric animal crossing the road near the lake. This sighting sparked a massive increase in Nessie claims throughout the 1930s. The surgeon's photograph, taken in 1934 by Robert Kenneth Wilson, purportedly shows the head and neck of the Loch Ness Monster emerging from the water. This iconic image became one of the most famous pieces of evidence supporting the existence of Nessie, and has led to the enduring image of the cryptid. However, in 1994, the original, uncropped version of the photograph was discovered, and it was revealed that the photograph was a hoax, with Nessie, being a device constructed with a toy submarine. Efforts to search for Nessie have included sonar surveys of the loch, underwater cameras, and even satellite imagery, but conclusive evidence of the creature's existence remains elusive. Skeptics argue that the Loch Ness Monster is simply a myth or legend perpetuated by folklore and hoaxes, while believers maintain that there is still much to learn about the mysteries of Loch Ness. At present, there are basically three schools of thought on the Loch Ness Monster. One theory suggests that Nessie is a surviving population of plesiosaurs, a group of marine dinosaurs. Proponents of this theory argue that Loch Ness provides a suitable habitat for these creatures, with its deep cold waters resembling the environments where plesiosaurs thrived millions of years ago. Misidentifications. Another theory proposes that sightings of Nessie are simply misidentifications of known animals, such as large fish, seals, or floating debris. Loch Ness is also home to a variety of wildlife, including eels and sturgeons, which could be mistaken for a mysterious creature in the water. A combination of folklore and hoaxes. Some skeptics argue that Nessie is purely a product of folklore and hoaxes. They contend that stories of a monster in Loch Ness have been embellished over time, fueled by imagination, sensationalism, and occasional hoaxes such as the surgeon's photograph. At any rate, I love the Loch Ness Monster and Loch Ness Monster lore. And while my rational side accepts that these sorts of creatures don't live in Scottish lakes, I have more than a touch of romanticism in my heart, so I will always hold out faint hope for Nessie. American Ghost Camels. Ghost camels are part of American folklore, particularly in Arizona. The legend stems from the 19th century when the U.S. Army imported camels for transportation. After the experiment was deemed a failure, these camels were released into the wild, leading to numerous sightings of feral camels roaming the deserts. The most intriguing aspect of these sightings is the tale of the Red Ghost. Accounts describe a large, red-haired camel wandering the desert, often with stories of a skeletal figure strapped to its back. The first reported sighting occurred in the 1880s, with a rancher encountering the Red Ghost, causing panic among his livestock. Another report details a woman found trampled by a large animal, with mysterious red hairs left at the scene. That red hair is clearly evidence of a camel-based crime in my view. Over the years, sightings of the ghost camels continued, fueling speculation and the myth. Based on my research, it doesn't appear there's any evidence to suggest any sustained population of camels in Arizona. Interestingly, I don't see why camels couldn't have been more useful in the Southwest in the early days of American settlement, but their niche was taken very famously by horses. The Poe Toaster. The Poe Toaster is a mysterious figure associated with an annual tribute to Edgar Allan Poe, the famous writer known for his mystery tales. This individual, whose identity remains unknown, visited Poe's grave in Baltimore, Maryland, every year on the writer's birthday, January 19th, from at least the 1930s until 2009. The tradition involved the toaster leaving 3 roses and a half-empty bottle of cognac at the grave. The specifics of the ritual, such as the arrangement of roses and the choice of cognac, were consistent, adding to the intrigue surrounding the toaster's visits. The motivations behind the Poe Toaster's tribute are speculative, as the individual never publicly disclosed their reasons. Several theories suggest the act could be a gesture of admiration for Poe's work, a personal tribute from someone who felt a deep connection to the author, or part of a tradition passed down through a family or organization. The consistent nature of the tribute indicates a profound respect for Poe, highlighting his impact on literature and the lasting fascination with his dark, romantic, and enigmatic themes. Attempts to uncover the identity of the Poe toaster have been numerous but unsuccessful. Witnesses reported seeing a figure dressed in black with a silver-tipped cane, but efforts to follow or engage the individual never yielded concrete information. The toaster's ability to maintain anonymity, despite the public's interest and media attention, adds to the mystery and allure of the tradition. The cessation of the visits in 2010 led to speculation about the reasons behind the toaster's disappearance. Some believe the original toaster may have passed away, with successors attempting to continue the tradition without the original's commitment or secrecy. The Poe toaster phenomenon is bolstered by the fact that Edgar Allan Poe met his demise under mysterious circumstances, which were discussed in Part 2 of this Iceberg series. The Mothman. The Mothman is a cryptid first reported in 1966 in Point Pleasant, West Virginia. Descriptions depict it as a large, winged humanoid with glowing red eyes. The phenomenon gained widespread attention following a series of sightings over a year, culminating in the tragic collapse of the Silver Bridge, which led to speculation about the Mothman being an omen of impending disaster. Initial sightings occurred near a former World War II munitions site, with two couples reporting an encounter with a large flying man with 10-foot wings chasing their car. Following these reports, more individuals came forward with similar accounts, describing a creature capable of incredible speed and eerie red eyes. The Mothman quickly became a fixture of local lore. The collapse of the Silver Bridge was a catastrophic event that occurred on December 15, 1967, in Point Pleasant, West Virginia, tragically resulting in the deaths of 46 people. The bridge, which spanned the Ohio River and connected Point Pleasant, West Virginia, to Gallipolis, Ohio, failed during rush hour, plunging vehicles and pedestrians into the icy waters below. An investigation into the disaster identified the cause of the collapse as the failure of a single bar in a suspension chain. This defect led to a crack that propagated under the stress of continuous use. Locals quickly theorized that there may have been some connection between this tragic event and the numerous sightings of the Mothman over the previous years. Theories regarding the Mothman's nature and origins vary widely. Some propose it is a previously undiscovered species, perhaps a giant owl, misidentified under stress or low-light conditions. Another theory suggests the Mothman is a paranormal entity, linking it to a wide range of supernatural phenomena, including UFO sightings and encounters with men in black, who are said to warn individuals against speaking about UFOs. This theory is bolstered by the concentration of strange occurrences in the Point Pleasant area during the time of the Mothman sightings, including reports of poltergeist activity, unexplained lights, and electronic interference. Cryptozoologists and enthusiasts have also suggested that the Mothman might be an interdimensional being, capable of moving between realities or dimensions. These days, the Mothman has become a symbol of Point Pleasant, with an annual festival celebrating this creature. My thoughts on the Mothman are that it's a likely owl misidentification. Owls are surprisingly large and terrifying, and the air of fear surrounding the Mothman likely led to heightened susceptibility to misidentifying a large, angry owl at night. Furor Teutonicus. Furor Teutonicus, translated as Teutonic fury, refers to the ancient Roman perspective of the Germanic people's manner of warfare. This concept encapsulates the Romans' view of the Germanic fighters as embodying a wild, frenzied style of combat, characterized by sheer ferocity and bravery. Historical accounts, notably by Roman historians such as Tacitus, describe the Germanic tribes as rushing into battle with a berserk-like rage, an image that contrasted with the disciplined formations of Roman legions. Theories surrounding the phenomenon suggest it was partly a psychological tactic, instilling fear in enemies through the displays of apparently uncontrollable aggression. Modern interpretations question the extent to which Furor Teutonicus was exaggerated by Roman writers, proposing it as a form of propaganda to underscore the barbaric nature of their adversaries compared to Roman civilization. Conversely, archaeological findings and historical records indicate that Germanic warfare did involve elements of surprise, speed, and individual prowess. Alternative theories suggest that writers such as Tacitus inflated the bravery of the Germanic tribesmen as a way to shame Romans into better behavior. Notably, this concept has also been associated with other Germanic groups, such as the Vikings, a Germanic Norse group who needs no introduction, and the Normans, a Viking offshoot people. The Berserkers. Viking berserkers were fearsome warriors said to fight in a trance-like fury. These fighters, often linked to Odin, arguably the foremost of the Norse gods, supposedly possessed the ability to enter a battle-induced frenzy, making them formidable opponents who felt no pain and displayed extraordinary strength. The term berserker itself likely derives from an Old Norse term meaning bear shirt, indicative of their practice of wearing animal skins, particularly those of bears. These bear skins were believed to imbue them with bear spirit and bear strength during combat. Historical accounts and sagas describe berserkers as both awe-inspiring and terrifying, capable of feats beyond normal human abilities. They were reputed to bite their shields, howl like wild beasts, and cut through enemy ranks with unstoppable force. They were also reputed to be nearly impervious to pain. Their reputation alone was said to strike fear into the heart of their enemies. The unsolved mystery comes from how they were able to enter these states. Theories about the berserker's trance state range from psychological to physiological explanations, including ritualistic use of hallucinogenic substances to induce frenzy. Others suggest that the berserker rage was a form of hyperarousal state, with the intense stress of combat triggering a flood of adrenaline and endorphins, resulting in heightened aggression and reduced sensitivity to pain. Another popular theory is that berserkers were bear cultists, and they didn't just believe the skins imbued them with the powers associated with bears, but rather that they believed they had physically become bears on the battlefield. The slaying of Otzi, the Iceman. Otzi, also known as the Iceman, was a Copper Age individual discovered in 1991, preserved within a glacier in the Alps on the border between Austria and Italy. Otzi also happens to be the oldest cold case file around. Sorry, I couldn't resist the wordplay. Radiocarbon dating suggests he lived around 3300 BC. The state of his preservation has provided unprecedented insights into the life and death of people from the Copper Age. Otzi's demise has been the subject of extensive scientific investigation and speculation, leading to several theories about how and why he was killed. The primary evidence of Otzi's cause of death is an arrowhead lodged in his left shoulder, indicating he was shot from behind at a distance. This wound severed a major blood vessel, likely causing him to perish. Additionally, a deep cut on his right hand suggests he was involved in hand-to-hand combat shortly before his death. These injuries, combined with other bruises and cuts found on his body, suggest that Otzi was involved in a violent conflict. One theory proposes that Otzi was a victim of a ritual sacrifice, a practice known in various ancient cultures. However, the nature of his injuries and the location where he was found make this theory less plausible. It is more widely believed that Otzi died as a result of a conflict, possibly a skirmish or a personal dispute. Another theory suggests that Otzi was fleeing from his attackers when he was shot. The location and angle of the arrow injury support this theory, as does the fact that his belongings were scattered around him as if he had been in a hurry. The evidence of a meal found in his stomach, consisting of grains and meats, indicates that Otzi had eaten very shortly before his death, suggesting he was taken by surprise. At this point, I think it's safe to say that the perpetrator has gotten away with it. Genghis Khan's tomb. The final resting place of Genghis Khan, the founder of the Mongol Empire and one of history's most formidable conquerors, remains unknown. Despite extensive historical records of his conquests and the empire he built, details about the location of his tomb are conspicuously absent. One prevalent theory suggests that Genghis Khan's burial site is in the Mongolian Khenti Mountains, near the Onan River, an area considered sacred by the Mongols and closely associated with his early life. Another theory posits that the funeral procession took extraordinary measures to conceal the tomb's location, including killing those who attended the burial and diverting a river to cover the grave. Modern searches for Genghis Khan's tomb have employed satellite imagery, ground-penetrating radar, and other advanced technologies, but these efforts have been hampered by the Mongolian government's restrictions on excavations in certain areas. Additionally, some scholars argue that the tomb may never be found due to the nomadic lifestyle of the Mongols, which favored simpler, unmarked burial practices. Plus, the possibility that subsequent natural and human activities have obliterated any trace of the tomb over the centuries. If you've reached this point, don't forget to give my channel a like, and remember to subscribe and ring the notification bell. I'm always in the kitchen cooking up fresh content for your enjoyment. Check out the Discord link in the description to chill with myself and other cool cats. Also, if you really want to take it up a level, consider becoming a part of my Patreon or joining the Lazy Chill Zone YouTube membership club. Click the links in the description. Shout out to my patrons Noah Schubert, Kazakh Cutie, and Kurt the Squirt. Until next time, stay healthy and peace out. Welcome to part 6 of the Unsolved Mysteries Iceberg, where we explore dark and fascinating mysteries. On this iceberg, we deep dive unsolved mysteries, including true crime, myths and legends, strange events, cryptids, urban legends, internet mysteries, and more. Let's go down this rabbit hole together. The disappearance of Jennifer Kesse. In January 2006, the disappearance of Jennifer Kesse shocked Orlando, Florida. Jennifer, a 24-year-old financial analyst, vanished without a trace, leaving behind a perplexing mystery spanning 2 decades. Jennifer Kesse was last seen on the evening of January 23, 2006. She had recently purchased a condo in Orlando and was known for her reliability and strong work ethic. And when Jennifer failed to show up for work on January 24th and didn't respond to calls, her family and friends immediately knew something was wrong. A missing persons report was filed, and the search for Jennifer began. Her car, a black Chevy Malibu, was found 2 days later at a nearby apartment complex, providing the only significant clue to her disappearance. Surveillance footage from the complex showed a person parking Jennifer's car and walking away. Unfortunately, the individual's identity was obscured. Despite extensive efforts, this individual has never been identified. Several theories have emerged with respect to Jennifer Kesse's disappearance. The first theory suggests that Jennifer was abducted by someone she knew, possibly someone from her personal or professional life. This theory is supported by the lack of forced entry into her condo and her car being found in a condition that suggested a hurried attempt to hide it. Her ex-boyfriend and then current boyfriend were both examined as suspects, but were quickly ruled out. A manager at her workplace was also extensively investigated after it turned out he had made numerous advances on her and desired a relationship with her. Kesse was in a relationship and not interested whatsoever in this manager, leading the police to believe he may have had a motive to commit an act against her. However, he too was quickly ruled out as a suspect. A second theory points to a construction worker or workers. At the time of her disappearance, Jennifer's condo complex was undergoing extensive renovations, and she had expressed discomfort about the workers to her family and friends. The theory suggests that someone who had access to her daily routines could have seized an opportunity to abduct her, perhaps in connection to a human trafficking ring. The third and broader theory involves a random act of violence by a stranger. However, while this is possible, there is no evidence to support the theory. Bible John, the serial killer of Glasgow. Bible John, a name that still strikes fear into the heart of Glasgow, Scotland, refers to an unidentified serial slayer linked to the deaths of 3 women in the late 1960s. The moniker originates from the killer's alleged quoting of the Bible during his encounters with victims, leading to a media frenzy and a manhunt. The only link between the slayings was a nightclub called the Barrowland Ballroom, and the description of a well-spoken, smartly dressed man given by witnesses who saw the victims on the nights of their disappearances. Patricia Docker, a 25-year-old nursing auxiliary, was the first victim, last seen alive on February 23, 1968. Her body was discovered the following morning, not far from her home, hidden from view. She had met her end by way of strangling. The second victim, Jemima MacDonald, a 32-year-old mother of 3, met a similar fate after a night at the Barrowland on August 16, 1969. Her disappearance sparked rumors among the local community, leading to the grim discovery of her body in an abandoned building. Like Patricia, Jemima had been strangled. The final known victim, Helen Puttock, also 29, attended the Barrowland Ballroom on October 31, 1969. Helen's body was found the next day in the backyard of her apartment. The brutal nature of her slaying, combined with a witness account from her sister, who had shared a taxi with Helen, and the mysterious man, provided the most detailed description of the slayer. Over the years, several suspects have been considered, with one of the most notable being Peter Tobin. Tobin, a convicted serial killer, came into focus due to similarities between his known crimes and the Bible John slayings, including his suspected presence in Glasgow at the time of the killings and his resemblance to the composite sketches of the suspect. However, conclusive evidence linking Tobin to the Bible John slayings has never been found, and may never be, due to improper storage of DNA evidence from the slayings. Further, the police no longer consider him a suspect, and have since come to have doubts that he actually lived in Glasgow at the time of the slayings, partly due to evidence of Tobin's wife, who has cooperated with police in relation to Tobin's crimes. Numerous other suspects have been considered. However, at present, all major candidates for Bible John have been cleared by the authorities. Elizabeth Bathory, the Vampire Countess. Elizabeth Bathory, often dubbed as the most prolific female serial killer in history, remains a figure shrouded in mystery and controversy. Born into a high noble family in 1560 in Hungary, her life story has transcended the realm of mere historical biography to become a legend intertwined with tales of horror and bloodlust. Yet, amidst this sensationalism, a critical question arises. Was Elizabeth Bathory a monstrous killer, or the victim of one of the greatest historical frame jobs of all time? Bathory's infamy is primarily linked to the alleged gruesome slaying of hundreds of young women. According to historical records, she was accused of committing heinous acts of violence, with testimonies from survivors and witnesses painting a grim picture of her cruelty. The stories suggest that Bathory's crimes were not only motivated by sadism, but also by a belief that the blood of virgins could preserve her youth and beauty. The quote-unquote trial of Elizabeth Bathory was notably unconventional, even by the standards of the 17th century. She was never formally tried in court herself, nor was she allowed to defend herself against the accusations. 2 trials were held of her supposed accomplices, in which it was claimed that the Countess killed up to 650 young ladies. These trials were not thorough by any means, taking a total of 2 days between them. Yes, 2 days, for a trial allegedly involving up to 650 slayings. The evidence against her was largely gathered through testimony extracted from the torture of her servants, who were accused of being her accomplices. This method of evidence collection casts a massive and overriding shadow of doubt over the veracity of the claims. Furthermore, there were no bodies found at her castle to corroborate the staggering number of victims she was accused of slaying. As a result of these legal proceedings, she was confined to her castle for the rest of her life. There is significant evidence to suggest that Bathory was the victim of a conspiracy. Upon the death of her husband, she expanded her already sprawling estates in Hungary. This was problematic as Bathory was Protestant, while the Habsburg king of Hungary, Matthias, was Catholic. Further, Matthias was also deeply indebted to Bathory, a problem which was solved by the accusations against her. All that said, Bathory is still frequently thought of as one of the most prolific serial slayers of all time, despite all the evidence against this view. The biting nuns. The phenomenon known as the biting nun mass hysteria emerged in the 15th century in Germany, later spreading throughout Europe. It all started with one nun's inexplicable urge to bite her peers, a contagion that swiftly infected her convent, leading to a widespread outbreak of similar incidents among the nuns. Analysts suggest that the convent's restrictive and severe setting, along with the psychological and societal strains borne by the nuns, might have triggered this hysteria. Thus, the biting incidents can be seen as a manifestation of the underlying stress and suppressed emotions within the cloistered communities. Occurring in a period when the comprehension of mental health was rudimentary at best, such actions were often or always attributed to religious or superstitious causes. The prevalent belief systems of the time might have construed the nuns' behavior as demonic possession or a divine challenge, rather than recognizing it as a psychological distress signal. However, there is a school of thought that challenges the event altogether. The first documented attestation of the biting nuns event comes from the Enlightenment era in the 18th century. This was famously a time when European intellectuals sought to distance themselves from superstitious worldviews and adopt rational outlooks on the world. Under this theory, the event may have been fabricated to portray religious institutions as oppressive and non-scientific. However, just because our first attestation of the event is in the 18th century, doesn't mean this individual wasn't working from earlier sources, which have now been lost. The Blind River Killer. The Blind River Killer is an individual who committed heinous acts for no discernible reason in June 1991. In June 1991, Gord and Jackie McAllister, a couple from Lindsay, Ontario, embarked on a cross-Canada vacation to visit relatives. Their trip took a tragic turn at the Blind River Rest Stop in Ontario when, in the early hours of June 28th, they encountered a man claiming to be a police officer who forced his way into their camper with the intent to rob and kill them. Despite complying and handing over their valuables, Jackie was fatally shot by the assailant, and Gord, although injured, survived the ordeal. Brian Donald Major was also present at the rest stop at the same time. For reasons which are entirely unknown, he was also slain by the Blind River Killer. However, given the circumstances, no account has survived as to what took place between the Blind River Killer and Major. A former police officer who is presently serving life for unrelated slayings is speculated to be the Blind River Killer. However, at present, the case remains unsolved. The West Mesa Slayings. The West Mesa Slayings are one of New Mexico's most chilling unsolved crimes. Discovered in 2009 in Albuquerque, New Mexico, the remains of 11 women were found buried on the West Mesa, an undeveloped stretch of land within the city limits. The victims were largely involved in illicit activities and disappeared between 2001 and 2005. These slayings are suspected to have been the work of a serial killer nicknamed the West Mesa Bone Collector. The grim discovery was made accidentally by a woman walking her dog, leading to a massive police investigation. Over the course of a year, the remains of the 11 women were excavated. Despite extensive forensic efforts, the cause of death for the victims could not be determined, largely because of the advanced state of decomposition. The Albuquerque Police Department launched what would become one of the largest investigations in the state's history, involving local, state, and federal agencies. Several theories have emerged over the years, ranging from the involvement of a lone serial killer to multiple perpetrators working together. Some theories suggest that the murders were the work of a truck driver serial killer, given the proximity of the burial site to Interstate 40, a major east-west route across the United States. Others speculate about the involvement of gangs or cartels, given the victims' connections to drugs and the high level of violence associated with these groups. Several suspects have been investigated over the years. However, two are considered most likely. One of the early suspects was Lorenzo Montoya, who lived less than 3 miles from the burial site. Montoya had a history of violence towards women and was killed in 2006 after strangling a woman he had hired for her services. However, her quote-unquote boyfriend intervened and fatally shot him over the strangling incident. No direct evidence has linked Montoya to the West Mesa murders, and his death before the bodies were discovered means that many questions remain unanswered. Interestingly, proponents of this theory point out that Montoya died in 2006, and the last body in the West Mesa was put there in 2005. Another person of interest is Joseph Blee, a local Albuquerque resident with a long criminal history, including a significant history of convictions in relation to SA offenses. Blee came to the attention of investigators because of his known activity in the area where the victims disappeared and his criminal background. In 2015, he was sentenced to 38 years on unrelated charges in relation to heinous acts. Police have found circumstantial evidence linking Blee to the slayings, but nothing concrete. The kidnapping of Shergar. Shergar, a celebrated Irish racehorse, became an international sensation, not just for his accomplishments on the racecourse, but also due to his mysterious disappearance in 1983. Born in 1978, Shergar was known for his remarkable speed and agility, winning the 1981 Epsom Derby by a record margin of 10 lengths, an achievement that remains unmatched. Owned by the Aga Khan, a prominent figure in thoroughbred racing, Shergar's career was illustrious, earning him numerous accolades and making him one of the most valuable stallions at stud at the time of his kidnapping. After the record win at the Epsom Derby, this Irish stallion was valued at a massive £10 million in 1981. Adjusted for inflation, Shergar was valued at nearly £40 million in 2024 values. On the evening of February 8, 1983, a group of armed men broke into the Ballymoney stud in County Kildare, Ireland, where Shergar was housed. The assailants, masked and wielding firearms, kidnapped the horse, holding the stud's head groom at gunpoint. The event sparked a massive search operation and led to widespread media coverage, turning the case into one of the most notorious animal kidnappings of the 20th century. Theories and suspects surrounding Shergar's disappearance are varied, but the most prominent theory involves the Irish Republican Army, better known as the IRA. It is widely speculated that the IRA orchestrated the kidnapping as part of an effort to secure funding for their operations. The theory is supported by several pieces of circumstantial evidence and later claims by individuals allegedly involved with the IRA. However, despite extensive investigations, no one was ever officially charged in relation to the crime. and the IRA has never admitted involvement. Other theories suggest that the kidnapping was the work of a criminal gang unaffiliated with any political organization, possibly international, who saw the value in Shergar as a ransom target. However, these theories have not been as thoroughly substantiated as the IRA involvement hypothesis. Despite efforts by authorities and private investigators, the case gradually grew cold, with no significant breakthroughs. Shergar's fate remains a mystery. The consensus among investigators and those close to the case is that the horse was likely unfortunately slain by his kidnappers shortly after the abduction, possibly due to the inability to control such a high-profile animal or to negotiate a successful ransom. However, others have speculated that upon the failure of negotiations, the horse may have been sold to an unscrupulous breeder. In my view, I don't see this as a meaningful possibility, as in this case, Shergar would likely have had a large number of offspring who would now be connected by DNA to his known progeny. This theory in essence requires a closed system where the post-kidnapping progeny would never be let out into the general racehorse population. Theus, the werewolf of God. Theus of Kaltenbrunn, often known by the monikers the Livonian werewolf or the werewolf of God, was a man whose life and subsequent disappearance are, to put it mildly, cinematic. He hailed from Livonia, present-day Latvia, and Estonia, a region steeped in folklore and superstition. The 17th century was a tumultuous period in European history, characterized by religious upheaval, witch hunts, and a deep fascination with the supernatural. It was against this backdrop that Theus's story unfolded, with extraordinary claims and the mysterious circumstances surrounding his disappearance. Theus's story is particularly notable for his trial in 1692, where instead of denying accusations of witchcraft, as was common, he boldly proclaimed himself to be a werewolf as his defense. However, his version of lycanthropy diverged sharply from the malevolent creatures of lore. Theus claimed that he and other werewolves were warriors of God, venturing into hell 3 times a year to battle the devil and his witches, thereby ensuring a bountiful harvest for their communities. This assertion flipped the script on traditional werewolf mythology, portraying these beings not as feared predators and allies of Satan, but as protectors working for the greater good. The penalties associated with both witchcraft and lycanthropy during this period were, to be frank, draconian. Either of these offenses was sufficient to warrant execution. The judges at his trial accepted that he was, factually, a werewolf, but found that he was not a servant of the devil, and had been actively working against the forces of Satan and his witches. That said, as they say, rules are rules, so the judges sentenced him to flogging and banishment. This was, of course, an extremely minor punishment for an accused witch who admitted to being a werewolf. Some believe that Theus actually did transform into a werewolf and did go to hell to fight witches and the devil. Support for this theory comes from the fact that his quote-unquote defense to witchcraft was that he committed another equally bad capital crime. Proponents of this theory question why anyone under such a legal system would try to defend themselves by admitting to something so outlandish and dangerous if it wasn't true. Further, proponents note that the judges at the trial made a factual finding that Theus was a werewolf, indicating that the evidence must have led them strongly to this conclusion. In response, critics of the theory argue that Theus was accused of being a witch, and there was evidence of him conducting blessings without invoking the name of God. Given this, he likely would have been found guilty of witchcraft and ended, and as such, he had nothing to lose by fabricating a story which didn't exonerate him on the basis that he was not a witch, but rather on the basis that his actions were justified. After being banished, Theus disappears from the historical record. Some point to this as a mysterious disappearance, supporting the fact that perhaps he was a werewolf and returned to his pack. More grounded explanations assert that Thies was only of historical note due to the trial, and there was no reason for any record to exist of him either before the trial or after. Also, Netflix, please make a show about Thies. Thanks. The Red Baron. The Red Baron, Manfred Albrecht Freiherr von Richthofen, remains perhaps the most legendary figure in the history of aerial combat. Born on May 2, 1892, in Breslau, now located in Poland, Richthofen became a pilot in the German Air Force during World War I. He is credited with 80 air combat victories, making him the war's top-scoring ace. His nickname stems from the fact that he painted his plane a bright red, and also from the fact that he was, legitimately, a baron. Richthofen's fame stems from his extraordinary skill as a pilot and tactician, his role in developing aerial combat tactics, and his leadership of the Flying Circus. The Flying Circus was composed of several of Germany's top fighters, who painted their aircraft in bright colors, leading to their circus nickname. The Red Baron's exploits quickly became legendary, contributing to his mythos both during his life and posthumously. The mystery surrounding the Red Baron's death on April 21, 1918, adds a significant layer to his legend. While flying over Vaux-sur-Somme in France, he was shot down and killed. The controversy lies in who fired the fatal shot. Two primary theories exist. One credits the shot to a machine gunner on the ground, while the other attributes it to a fighter pilot. The ground fire theory posits that Australian machine gunner Sergeant Cedric Popkin was responsible for the fatal shot. Richthofen was pursuing a Canadian pilot, Lieutenant Wilfred May, at low altitude, making him vulnerable to ground fire. Popkin, positioned for an ideal shot as the Red Baron flew past, likely had the opportunity and angle to hit the Baron. Forensic analyses and examinations of the bullet trajectory support this theory, suggesting that the bullet came from the ground. The second theory credits Canadian pilot Captain Arthur Roy Brown with shooting the Red Baron down. Brown was engaged in the dogfight, attempting to protect May from the Red Baron. He fired at Richthofen from a challenging position, and it was initially believed that Brown's gunfire brought the Red Baron down, earning Brown official credit for the victory. However, several factors complicate attributing the victory to Brown. The angle of the shot, the distance, and the maneuvers involved make it less likely that Brown's fire was the cause. Furthermore, the nature of the Baron's wounds suggests a bullet that traveled upward through his body, more consistent with ground fire than an aerial attack. No definitive conclusion has been reached, and it's likely that the mystery will never be fully solved. However, at this point, even though Brown is still officially credited with the victory, the vast majority of historians no longer accept this claim. Further, during the war, there was a strong propagandistic incentive to portray the Red Baron as being felled in aerial combat, rather than by a machine gunner on the ground. Bill and Peggy Stevenson. This case was suggested in the comments of a previous video by a subscriber named The Slim Slayer. Thanks for bringing this disturbing case to my attention. Also, quick aside, if your suggestion makes it into a future video, you'll get a shout out as well. So leave suggestions in the comments below. In late May 2011, the quiet town of Florence, Kentucky, was shaken by a gruesome discovery that quickly escalated into one of the state's most perplexing unsolved slayings. Bill and Peggy Stevenson, both in their mid-70s, were found dead in their home over the Memorial Day weekend, launching an investigation that, despite extensive efforts, has yet to yield a conclusive resolution. Bill, a well-regarded truck driver, and Peggy, a devoted church nursery worker, were deeply embedded in their community, particularly within their local church. Their commitment to their faith and community service made the news of their death not only shocking, but profoundly incomprehensible to those who knew them. The Stevensons were last seen alive at a service at the Union Baptist Church, where they were regular attendees and active members. The discovery of their bodies was made by a relative who grew concerned after the couple failed to show up for church on Sunday, which was highly unusual for the devout pair. Upon entering their home, the relative was met with a scene that suggested a violent struggle had taken place. Both Bill and Peggy had been subjected to what can only be categorized as an extremely brutal attack. While the full details of the crime scene have not been released due to the ongoing nature of the investigation, what has been released is that the bodies were quote-unquote posed, and the rooms in the house were quote-unquote staged. Further, investigators have confirmed that a message was left by the perpetrator, though again, due to the ongoing nature of the investigation, no further details were released. The manner of their slaying suggested a level of personal animosity, yet despite exhaustive investigations, no motive has clearly been established, and no suspects have been identified. The investigation into the Stevenson slayings was extensive and thorough, with local police working in conjunction with state and federal agencies. Forensic evidence was collected from the scene, including DNA samples, but this has not led to a breakthrough in the case. Over the years, several theories have emerged, ranging from a random act of violence to a targeted killing, possibly connected to Bill's work or their community activities. However, none of these theories have solidified into a concrete lead. Further, their home showed no signs of forced entry, suggesting that they may have known the person who committed this heinous crime. The extinction of the Paraceratherium. Paraceratherium, often cited as the largest land mammal to have ever lived, roamed the Earth during the Oligocene epoch, approximately 34 to 23 million years ago. This prehistoric giant, belonging to the family of hornless rhinoceroses, stood nearly 16 feet tall at the shoulder, with estimates of its length reaching up to 24 feet and weights possibly up to 20 tons. To put it simply, this creature made elephants look small. Its vast range covered parts of what is now Asia, from the Balkans through Central Asia to China. Despite its imposing size and widespread distribution, Paraceratherium, like many prehistoric species, faced extinction. However, despite being one of the most impressive land mammals to ever exist, and despite having no predators, it went extinct for reasons which are still unknown. The leading theories on the extinction of Paraceratherium revolve around climate change, habitat loss, and the resultant changes in food availability. During the Oligocene, the Earth experienced significant climatic shifts. These shifts led to the gradual replacement of the dense, lush forests they thrived in. Such a transformation in the global environment would have posed a severe challenge to the creature, which relied on large quantities of foliage from trees and shrubs to sustain its enormous body size. As forests receded, the animal's primary food source became scarcer, making survival increasingly difficult. Another critical factor contributing to the extinction of Paraceratherium was the changing geography of the Earth during this period. The formation of mountain ranges like the Himalayas, due to the Indian subcontinent's collision with Asia, significantly altered the landscape and climate of the region. These geological changes would have further disrupted the habitats of many species, including Paraceratherium, leading to fragmentation of populations and isolation of groups. Furthermore, competition for resources with other herbivorous mammals might have played a role in Paraceratherium's extinction. As the environment changed, Paraceratherium would have found itself competing with an increasing number of species adapted to the new grassland ecosystems. These species, being possibly more efficient at processing the available vegetation or better adapted to the changing conditions, could have outcompeted Paraceratherium for food, leading to its decline. Anyway, I know lots of people long for the day where hordes of cloned-out woolly mammoths are trotting across Siberia again. But for me, I would love to see one of these giants in person. The vegetable lamb of Tartary. The vegetable lamb of Tartary is a cryptid from medieval folklore, described as a plant-animal hybrid that grows sheep as its fruit. Originating from Central Asia, it embodies the blend of botanical and zoological elements in myth, presenting a sheep tethered to the earth by a stem. Early mentions trace back to Jewish texts and travel accounts by European explorers like Sir John Mandeville in the 14th century. They described the creature as a living plant that bore lambs as fruit, which grazed the land around them until the plant's stem broke, allowing the lamb to gain freedom, or it perished once all nearby vegetation was consumed. Theories about the vegetable lamb aim to explain the origins of cotton in medieval Europe, unfamiliar with the plant's actual cultivation. Cotton, resembling wool, fueled speculation about a plant that produced animal fleece. This narrative served as a medieval attempt to understand and categorize the natural world, using the limited information available. This cryptid hasn't been cited in years, suggesting that there is no legitimate belief in the vegetable lamb of Tartary remaining in 2024. Nosferatu was portrayed by an actual vampire. This hypothesis proposes that Max Schreck, famed for his role as Count Orlok in the 1922 film Nosferatu, was an actual vampire, using the role of a vampire to cover for the fact that he was in fact a vampire. This theory, while outlandish, emerges from Schreck's intensely private life, his peculiarly convincing portrayal of a vampire, and the lack of extensive documentation about his personal and professional history prior to Nosferatu. Schreck's portrayal of Count Orlok, considered one of the most iconic performances in film history, would suggest that he would have a significant career after. However, he languished in obscurity. Further, Schreck's name, translating to terror in German, adds an eerie coincidence, fueling speculation about his true nature. Proponents of the theory find that Schreck's performance in Nosferatu is too authentic. Unlike theatrical portrayals common in the silent film era, his Count Orlok exhibits a disturbing realism. His physical transformation for the role, without the sophisticated makeup and special effects available today, raises questions according to this hypothesis. Interestingly, the 2000 film Shadow of the Vampire is based upon this idea, with the 2000 film being a fictionalized version of the making of Nosferatu, where Schreck is definitely an actual vampire. Anyway, the theory lacks credibility and is grounded in speculation and poor research rather than facts. This urban legend portrays Schreck as a complete acting novice at the time of his casting as Nosferatu. However, this couldn't be further from the truth. Max Schreck had significant stage acting experience before his iconic role in Nosferatu. Schreck was a dedicated theater actor, honing his craft in various stage productions across Germany for decades. His stage experience provided a solid foundation for his transition into film, where he applied his theatrical skills to deliver the hauntingly memorable performance as Count Orlok. Further, Schreck did have a substantial career after. However, these films are much less widely known than Nosferatu, one of the most well-known movies of all time. Hats off to Max Schreck, though. Not many people can say they delivered a performance so haunting that people unironically question whether the person portraying the role is an undead being or not. If you like what you're seeing, do me a huge favor and hit the like button, the subscribe button, and that sweet notification bell. This helps my channel grow and lets me spend way more time in the kitchen cooking up content for you. Also, the Lazy Chill Zone Discord community is always growing, so hit the link in the description to join up. Also calling all Chads and Chadettes, join up on the Patreon or the YouTube membership. Both links are in the description. The 2008 Lane Bryant shooting. The Lane Bryant shooting was a harrowing event that unfolded on the morning of February 2, 2008, in Tinley Park, a suburb of Chicago. This tragic event resulted in the loss of 5 innocent lives. On February 2, 2008, a man posing as a delivery person entered the Lane Bryant store before store opening hours under the guise of making a delivery. Within moments, the situation rapidly deteriorated as he revealed his true intentions, turning a routine day into a nightmare for the store employees and customers present. The assailant took 6 women hostage, binding them with the materials he found within the store. The ordeal culminated in the execution-style slayings of 5 of the 6 hostages, leaving the nation shocked by the pointlessness and brutality of the crime. In the aftermath of the shooting, law enforcement agencies launched a comprehensive investigation, but no suspect has been named. The surviving victim was thankfully able to give a description sufficient for the police to release a sketch of the slayer. The case is still being actively investigated, with my research showing that 2 new investigators were put on the case in 2008. At this point, I have to suspect there is a very good chance that the killer may be incarcerated on unrelated charges. The disappearance of Roberto Solis. Roberto Solis, once known by the pen name Pancho Aguila, is a notorious criminal who disappeared under mysterious circumstances in October 1993. His criminal tale begins in 1969, when at the age of 24, Solis was convicted of slaying a security guard during a failed robbery. This violent act earned him a lengthy sentence in San Quentin State Prison, where he began to write poetry. His poetry was cited as indication of turning over a new leaf. However, despite his literary pursuits, Solis's criminal instincts were far from reformed. After serving 24 years, Solis was released on parole in 1992. By then, he had transformed himself into a seemingly reformed character, an artist who had supposedly turned away from his violent past. However, this facade quickly crumbled. In 1993, Solis masterminded one of the most audacious heists in Las Vegas history. Along with his accomplice and girlfriend, Heather Tall Chief, Solis stole $3.1 million from an armored car. This theft was not just remarkable for the amount stolen, but for the methodical planning and execution that left no direct traces to Solis or Tall Chief. After the heist, he and Tall Chief fled the United States, leaving behind few clues of their whereabouts. While Tall Chief resurfaced in 2005, surrendering to U.S. authorities and serving a prison sentence, Solis remained a ghost. Tall Chief went on to be paroled in 2010. She has advised authorities that she believes Solis is deceased. However, given that he's a violent criminal with a history of ending people, I suspect she may not be overly forthcoming about his potential whereabouts. The Tsavo Man-Eaters. In the late 19th century, a terrifying series of events unfolded near the Tsavo River in Kenya, casting a long shadow over the region. The Tsavo Man-Eaters, a pair of maneless male lions, embarked on a gruesome spree, claiming the lives of a number of workers engaged in the construction of the Uganda Railway. At the end of the 19th century, the British Empire was endeavoring to bolster its colonial infrastructure through the establishment of a railway that would connect Uganda to the Indian Ocean, thereby facilitating trade and military movement. However, what was meant to be a symbol of technological and imperial progress soon turned into a harrowing struggle for survival for the workers involved. Over several months in 1898, the Tsavo Man-Eaters instilled fear and chaos, halting construction as they preyed upon the railway workers with alarming audacity and intelligence. Several theories have been proposed to explain the lions' unusual behavior. A common assertion points to the scarcity of natural prey due to a concurrent severe drought, pushing these predators to seek alternative food sources. Another theory suggests that an outbreak of rinderpest, a devastating cattle disease decimated local wildlife populations, further exacerbating the situation. Another theory suggests that the lions had contracted a dental disease, which prevented them from hunting their usual prey. Also, perhaps unsurprisingly, more unusual and sensational theories were promoted by less than reputable journalistic outlets at the time. Ultimately, a British Lieutenant Colonel, John Henry Patterson, was tasked with hunting these menaces and eventually ended up slaying them both. Also, if you want to see these troublemakers today, their taxidermied bodies are on display at the Field Museum of Natural History in Chicago. The Fatimid Caliph. Hakim, the 6th Fatimid Caliph and 16th Ismaili Imam, vanished without a trace in 1021. Born in 985 in Cairo, he ascended to the throne at the tender age of 11. His reign, lasting over 2 decades, was marked by significant political, social, and religious transformations, yet it is his enigmatic disappearance that has fueled centuries of speculation and debate. Al-Hakim's rule was characterized by its eccentricities and contradictions. He was, to say the least, not a consistent individual. He implemented progressive policies, such as founding the House of Knowledge, a key center for intellectual and cultural exchange. Conversely, his reign saw the imposition of strict and peculiar decrees, including bans on chess and the consumption of certain foods. Al-Hakim's treatment of religious minorities oscillated dramatically. He alternated between periods of tolerance and severe persecution. The night of his disappearance, Al-Hakim went for one of his customary nocturnal rides in the Muqaddam Hills near Cairo and never returned. The search for him yielded only his donkey and blood-stained garments. This abrupt vanishing act gave rise to numerous theories. Some posit that he was ended by his own sister, Sit al-Mulk, who opposed his policies and subsequently assumed power as regent for her nephew. However, detractors point out that there is no evidence whatsoever to implicate her, and the transfer of power was not unusual. Others suggest he fell victim to a conspiracy by the military or by rival political factions within his empire. A more mystical theory embraced by the Druze, a religious group that reveres Al-Hakim, proposes that he disappeared and will return as a messianic figure. Further, some have posited that he had become interested in mysticism and asceticism and wished to escape from the confines of the caliphate. At any rate, it seems unlikely that we will ever have a definitive answer to this mystery. Our Lady of Guadalupe. Our Lady of Guadalupe holds a significant place in religious and cultural history, particularly within the context of Latin American Catholicism. In 1531, a pivotal event occurred on the hill of Tepeyac near Mexico City, marking the birth of a symbol that would unify and inspire millions for centuries to come. A poor indigenous man named Juan Diego experienced a series of apparitions of the Virgin Mary. She requested a church to be built on that site in her honor. When Juan Diego reported this to the local bishop, he was met with skepticism. In need of proof, the Virgin Mary instructed Juan Diego to gather roses from the hilltop, despite it being winter when no roses should bloom. Miraculously, he found Castilian roses, not native to Mexico, and gathered them in his tilma, a type of Aztec cloak. Upon presenting these to the bishop, the image of the Virgin Mary was miraculously imprinted on the fabric of the tilma. The Virgin Mary appearing on an indigenous cloak has been speculated to be the start of an ethnogenesis, the blending of the cultures and values of the native culture with Spanish culture. Further, the fact that it was Castilian roses, a type of Spanish rose, on an indigenous cloak, makes the whole event seem very much on the nose. Several theories have been proposed to explain the origin and significance of the image. Some researchers focus on the miraculous nature of the image's survival over centuries without degradation, which contradicts the natural properties of the materials involved. Others delve into the iconography and symbolism embedded in the image, suggesting it was a strategic tool for evangelization, designed to resonate deeply with the indigenous population's beliefs and values. The historical context of the apparition is crucial to understanding its impact. The early 16th century was a period of turmoil and transformation in what is now Mexico. The Spanish conquest had led to the collapse of the Aztec Empire, and the indigenous population faced the destruction of their social, political, and religious structures. The apparition of Our Lady of Guadalupe is seen by many as a beacon of hope and a source of comfort and identity for a people struggling under the weight of harsh colonization. The tilma, with the image of Our Lady of Guadalupe, is currently housed in the Basilica of Our Lady of Guadalupe in Mexico City, one of the most visited Catholic pilgrimage sites in the world. The image has been subjected to various scientific analyses over the years, with researchers examining its properties to understand its preservation and the technique used in its creation. However, no consensus has been reached as yet. Also, whatever happened to our friend Juan Diego, who saw the Virgin Mary? Well, he went on to become the first saint indigenous to the Americas, again further confirming this event as a syncretization of the New World with the Old World. The 2001 anthrax attacks. In the weeks following September 11th, the United States faced another sinister threat: the anthrax attacks. Letters containing anthrax spores were mailed to news media offices and 2 U.S. senators, leading to 5 deaths and 17 infections. This biological assault created widespread panic and confusion, marking a critical moment in U.S. history and biosecurity policy. The first case was reported on October 4, 2001, when Robert Stevens, a photo editor for the Sun tabloid in Florida, was diagnosed with inhalational anthrax. He eventually succumbed to the anthrax bacteria, becoming the first known victim. Subsequently, letters laced with anthrax were discovered in offices in New York, Florida, and Washington, D.C. The anthrax strains found in the letters were quickly linked to a specific strain, which was used in U.S. biodefense labs. This connection led investigators to focus on domestic sources, particularly scientists or individuals with access to these labs. The investigation, named Amerithrax by the FBI, became one of the largest and most complex in U.S. history. One significant aspect of the anthrax attacks was the heightened sense of vulnerability they exposed. Coming so soon after 9/11, these attacks underscored the potential for non-traditional warfare to inflict harm on civilian populations. The fear and uncertainty generated by the anthrax letters led to a surge in emergency room visits, an increase in the purchase of antibiotics, and a re-evaluation of the nation's preparedness for bioattacks. The Amerithrax investigation initially faced significant challenges, including false leads and a focus on a scientist named Stephen Hatfill, who was later exonerated. It wasn't until 2008 that the FBI identified Dr. Bruce Ivins, a senior biodefense researcher at the U.S. Army Medical Research Institute of Infectious Diseases, as the primary suspect. Ivins had access to the strain of anthrax used in the attacks and had been involved in the development of anthrax vaccines. However, before charges could be filed, Ivins ended himself in July 2008. The FBI declared at that point that Ivins had acted alone and that the file was closed. The FBI's conclusion that Ivins acted alone has been met with skepticism and criticism from various quarters. Most notably, individuals within the FBI itself indicated that the lack of any anthrax spores whatsoever in any area associated with him cast a great deal of doubt on the case. Some argue that the evidence against Ivins was circumstantial and that the investigation failed to explore other possible suspects or motives. Further, it's important to remember that just because Ivins ended himself, this does not constitute a confession or an admission of guilt. The extreme stress of impending charges for one of the worst attacks in American history may have led Ivins to break and end himself. Ross MacDonald. The untimely death of Ross MacDonald, an acclaimed Irish filmmaker and photographer, shocked the creative world. Born in Dublin, Ireland in 1979, MacDonald was a prolific and rising figure in his field, known for his exceptional skill in documentary filmmaking and photography. His notable works include co-directing documentaries such as Alien and Colony, as well as his critical role as a cinematographer in the Emmy-winning Showtime documentary series The Trade and the 2021 documentary film The First Wave. On November 5, 2023, MacDonald's life was tragically cut short at the age of 44. He was reported missing in New York City on November 4, 2023, sparking widespread concern and a subsequent search. His body was discovered on a beach in Breezy Point, Queens, on November 17th, and officially identified on November 22nd. The circumstances surrounding MacDonald's death have been shrouded in mystery, with initial reports suggesting no foul play. However, his body was discovered both headless and armless, leading some to question his cause of death. Police are presently working under the theory that he went out for a swim alone, something happened, and the state of his body was caused by rocks and marine life rather than foul play. The identity of Empress. Empress is a notable figure in the online world, recognized for her expertise in cracking DRM, digital rights management, protections on video games. She operates anonymously, with her identity shrouded in secrecy, a common practice in the hacker and cracker communities to avoid legal repercussions and maintain privacy. Empress first gained significant attention for cracking Denuvo, a notoriously tough DRM system that many considered virtually unbreakable. Empress's breakthroughs not only demonstrated her advanced understanding of reverse engineering, but also her commitment to challenging the constraints of DRM technologies. Her work is often released on various online platforms, accompanied by manifestos criticizing the gaming industry's DRM practices, as well as unrelated screeds. Despite her extreme levels of knowledge and skill, the woman behind the Empress identity remains a mystery. However, it is believed she is actually one person, not a pseudonym used by a group. Further, it's believed that she resides or resided in Russia. The Wickenburg Massacre. The Wickenburg Massacre unfolded on November 5, 1871, near Wickenburg, Arizona, then part of the Arizona Territory. This event involved the ambush and slaying of 6 passengers from a stagecoach en route from Wickenburg to Ehrenberg, Arizona. The massacre not only shocked and angered the frontier community, but also remains a subject of controversy and speculation, with various theories about the perpetrators and their motives still debated today. The stagecoach, carrying 7 passengers and a large shipment of gold, was attacked approximately 8 miles northwest of Wickenburg. The assailants, hiding in the brush alongside the road, opened fire on the stagecoach without warning. 6 of the passengers were slain outright or mortally wounded. One passenger, a woman named Molly Shepard, survived despite being shot. She managed to escape and eventually recounted the harrowing ordeal, which helped to shape the initial understanding of the event. The immediate aftermath of the massacre saw a rush to judgment, with local settlers and military authorities quickly blaming Native American groups, specifically the Yavapai. The military launched punitive expeditions against nearby Yavapai bands, exacerbating the already tense relations between Native Americans and settlers. However, the attribution of the massacre to the Yavapai was and remains a matter of contention. Some contemporaneous accounts and later historical analyses suggest that the attackers may have been motivated by the desire to rob the stagecoach of its valuable cargo. This theory is supported by the fact that the attack was meticulously planned and executed, indicating that the assailants had specific knowledge of the stagecoach's route and cargo. Another theory posits that the massacre was the result of internal conflict among settlers, or a dispute between different groups vying for control over the lucrative stagecoach routes and the transport of gold and other valuables. This perspective suggests that the massacre was a calculated act of violence aimed at disrupting the operations of a rival faction or company, with the blame conveniently placed on the Yavapai to divert suspicion. Yet another theory holds that whatever happened, the military simply used the attack as an excuse to conduct punitive raids. The Satanic Panic. The Satanic Panic was a widespread moral panic in the United States during the 1980s and early 1990s, characterized by fears of satanic ritual abuse perpetrated by secretive cults. The hysteria was significantly driven by exaggerated reports in the media, questionable psychological techniques that led to the creation of false memories through hypnosis, and a widespread fear regarding society's moral deterioration. This period also saw the emergence of conservative Christian factions, viewing the evolving cultural landscape and new youth cultures as evidence of a demonic plot. At the heart of this frenzy were claims of mistreatment within childcare establishments, notably illustrated by the notorious McMartin preschool case. Despite an evident lack of solid proof, a prevailing belief held that children were being exposed to appalling ceremonies. This alarm spread rapidly, encompassing music, video games, and films, with specific scrutiny aimed at certain heavy metal groups and fantasy role-playing games, notably Dungeons & Dragons. There is speculation that certain individuals or entities engaging in truly vile deeds exploited the Satanic Panic as a smokescreen, blending genuine instances of misconduct with clear examples of fabricated recollections. King Sebastian of Portugal. In 1578, the young and ambitious King Sebastian of Portugal vanished in the dense fog of the Battle of the Three Kings in Morocco. This event plunged Portugal into a crisis that eventually led to the loss of its independence. Sebastian, driven by dreams of crusader glory, led an ill-fated expedition to North Africa. The crushing defeat and his subsequent disappearance left Portugal reeling. There are several theories about what happened to him. Some suggest he died in battle, his body never identified amid the carnage. Others speculate he was captured and died in captivity, or even that he managed to escape, living the rest of his life in anonymity. A more romantic theory posits that he survived and went into hiding, waiting for the right moment to reclaim his throne, a moment that never came and became increasingly unlikely with each passing year. The immediate consequence of Sebastian's disappearance led to a succession crisis that paved the way for the Spanish king, Philip II, to claim the Portuguese crown in 1580. This personal union, with Portugal very much playing the role of the junior partner, effectively initiated a 60-year period of Spanish rule over Portugal, known as the Iberian Union. This union had far-reaching consequences for Portugal. The once mighty Portuguese maritime empire, pioneers of the Age of Discoveries, began to crumble, and the ambitions of the Portuguese were subsumed to Habsburg Spain. This is one unsolved mystery that, despite not being widely known, had massive consequences for the world, especially given the prominence of the Portuguese overseas empire prior to Sebastian's disappearance. The slaying of Yasuko Watanabe. The slaying of Yasuko Watanabe, a 39-year-old Japanese woman who worked as a senior economic researcher at Tokyo Electric Power Company and led a secret life as a paid companion at night, captured the attention of the nation. On March 9, 1997, Watanabe's life was tragically cut short by an unknown assailant in Harajuku, a neighborhood of Tokyo. Her body was discovered 10 days later in a vacant apartment in a nearby district of Tokyo, in an area where she was known to engage in her nightly activities. Watanabe's slaying shocked Japan and highlighted several societal issues, including the stigma associated with paid companionship work and the challenges within the Japanese criminal justice system. One of the most notable aspects of this case was the wrongful conviction of Govinda Prasad Mainali, a Nepalese migrant who lived in an adjacent building to where Watanabe's body was found. Mainali became the prime suspect and was initially acquitted due to lack of evidence, but was later convicted on appeal by the Tokyo High Court and sentenced to an indefinite prison term. He spent 15 years in prison before DNA evidence emerged, proving his innocence and linking the crime to an unidentified third man. Mainali was released in June 2012, deported to Nepal, and later formally declared innocent in the matter. At present, no person of interest has been named by the police. The ivory-billed woodpecker. The ivory-billed woodpecker is a potentially extinct bird that was once prevalent across the southeastern United States. This species is or was known for its distinctive appearance and large size. Central to the discussion on the ivory-billed woodpecker is its habitat. Historically, these birds thrived in extensive mature forests, particularly those abundant in dead or dying trees. These environments were essential not only for nesting but also for feeding, as the woodpeckers would forage for insects beneath the bark. However, the 20th century brought extensive logging operations that drastically reduced these habitats, leading to a severe decline in the bird's population. By the mid-20th century, the ivory-billed woodpecker was considered extinct, with the last confirmed sighting in the United States reported in 1944. Over the years, there have been numerous reports of sightings across the bird's historic range, particularly in Arkansas, Louisiana, and Florida, with a sighting in 2004 hitting national news. These accounts have sparked a series of searches and debates within the scientific community and among conservationists. The possibility that the ivory-billed woodpecker could still exist prompts a significant question. How could a species deemed extinct remain undetected for so long? One theory posits that the bird's elusive nature and preference for densely forested, swampy areas make it particularly challenging to spot. The ivory-billed woodpecker's behavior, such as its high canopy dwelling and infrequent calls, further complicates detection efforts. Additionally, the similarity in appearance between the ivory-billed woodpecker and the more common woodpeckers often leads to misidentification, casting doubt on unconfirmed sightings. I hypothesize that the likelihood of rediscovering the ivory-billed woodpecker hinges on the integration of technological advancements in current search efforts. The use of high-resolution trail cameras, drones, and audio recording devices could transform the landscape of wildlife research by enabling extensive surveys of potential habitats while minimizing environmental disturbance. This approach not only enhances the efficiency of search operations, but also extends scientists' reach into previously inhospitable territories that the woodpecker prefers. The disappearance of l'oiseau blanc. The disappearance of l'oiseau blanc, or the white bird, remains one of the most intriguing mysteries in the history of aviation. On May 8, 1927, French aviators Charles Nungesser and François Collet embarked on a daring attempt to make the first non-stop transatlantic flight from Paris to New York City. This venture was not just a test of human endurance and aeronautical engineering, but also a race to achieve what was then considered the ultimate feat in aviation. The plane, a Levasseur PL-8 biplane, was specially designed for the long journey, equipped with enough fuel to cover the 3,600-mile distance. Despite their experience and the plane's preparation, the two vanished without a trace. Several theories have been proposed to explain the fate of l'oiseau blanc. The most widely accepted theory suggests that the aircraft encountered severe weather conditions or mechanical failure over the Atlantic Ocean, leading to its crash into the sea. The vastness of the Atlantic and the era's limited search and rescue capabilities made recovery efforts futile, leaving no trace of the aviators or their plane. Another theory posits that l'Oiseau Blanc may have reached Newfoundland, or even Maine, but crashed in a remote area. Supporting this theory are numerous reports from individuals who claim to have heard or seen an aircraft matching the description during the time frame it would have been in the vicinity. However, extensive searches in these regions have failed to yield any significant concrete evidence, and these claims remain unverified. That said, in 1992, a part of a plane which could be from the l'Oiseau Blanc was discovered in Newfoundland. However, there was nothing to suggest it wasn't just from a similar model of plane. A more controversial theory suggests sabotage. The 1920s were a period of intense rivalry in aviation, with significant prestige and financial rewards for record-breaking flights. Some speculate that competing interests could have led to foul play, although no evidence has substantiated these claims. In my view, given the absolute lack of any evidence in the years following this, the theory can be safely dismissed. It could have happened, yes, but there's simply nothing there to support this view. Legio Ninth Hispana, the missing Ninth Spanish Legion. The disappearance of the Ninth Spanish Legion is one of the greatest mysteries of the Roman Empire. Known as Legio Nime Hispana in Latin, this legion of the Roman Empire was reputed for its military prowess and played a crucial role in Roman conquests across Europe. However, its sudden vanishing from historical records in the early 2nd century AD has sparked a myriad of theories and speculations, making it a captivating subject for exploration. The Ninth Legion likely existed since at least 90 BC. However, the exact origin and formation date remains unknown. The legion distinguished itself in the Roman military campaigns, particularly during Julius Caesar's Gallic Wars. It was later stationed in Britain following the Roman invasion in AD 43, where it was instrumental in suppressing uprisings and expanding Roman territory. The last definitive record of the Ninth's existence dates to the 2nd century AD, after which it mysteriously disappears from the annals of history. Several theories have been proposed to explain the fate of the Ninth Legion, each offering a different perspective based on historical evidence and archaeological findings. One prevalent theory suggests that the legion was decimated in battle, possibly during an uprising in Britain or in conflicts on the continent, such as the Bar Kokhba revolt in Judea, or in a war in Parthia in the 160s. Scholars consider the theory that the legion was destroyed during an uprising in northern Britain to be most plausible. Others suggest that due to administrative and clerical issues, the name of the legion was changed at some point, and it simply went under another name. From my research, I strongly prefer the theory that the Ninth Spanish Legion was annihilated. My evidence for this is circumstantial, but draws from the very well-documented precedent which was set at the Battle of Teutoburg Forest. For those not aware, this was a battle in 9 AD, wherein 3 Roman legions were completely annihilated by a confederation of Germanic tribesmen, halting the Roman advancement into Germanic territories at the Rhine River. The 17th, 18th, and 19th legions were destroyed, and due to superstition surrounding the destructions of these 3 legions, the names were never assigned to any future legions. Therefore, I would posit that the Ninth Spanish Legion likely met a similar fate, but perhaps due to the remoteness of battle and the lack of survivors, the battle itself is not attested in the historical record. The slaying of Gwen Story. The slaying of Gwen Story, a 19-year-old woman from Cincinnati, Ohio, has haunted Las Vegas since her body was discovered on August 14, 1979. Known as Sahara Sue, before her recent identification in December 2023, Her case has remained a mystery for 44 years. Story was found stabbed multiple times, and despite extensive efforts, including DNA analysis and genetic testing, her killer remains unknown. Before her death, she had left Ohio with 2 male friends, aiming to find her biological father in California. The 2 male friends returned and advised Gwen Story's family that she had been left in Las Vegas. Her family never heard from her again. Police are presently seeking the 2 male friends for questioning in relation to Gwen Story's disappearance. This is a very recent development, and as of February 2024, there is no update as to whether these men have been tracked down or whether their identities are even known at this point. Big Jim Colosimo. In the tumultuous underbelly of Prohibition-era Chicago, the slaying of James Big Jim Colosimo in 1920 marked a pivotal moment in the city's criminal history, laying the foundation for the rise of one of its most notorious gangsters, Al Capone. Colosimo, the head of a sprawling vice empire that included gambling dens, houses of ill repute, and a lavish restaurant where he met his demise, was at the zenith of his power when his life was abruptly ended. Johnny Torrio, Colosimo's underboss, and a formidable crime figure in his own right, is widely believed to have orchestrated Colosimo's slaying. Torrio, who had been instrumental in expanding Colosimo's criminal enterprises, saw an immense opportunity in bootlegging following the enactment of Prohibition. However, Colosimo, content with his existing operations, and perhaps wary of the increased attention such a move might attract, was reluctant to venture into alcohol distribution. According to this theory, this disagreement created a rift between Torrio and Colosimo, with Torrio increasingly convinced that Colosimo's reluctance threatened the future profitability and expansion of their criminal enterprise. The execution of the plot allegedly fell to Frankie Yale, a notorious hitman and Torrio's associate from New York. Following Colosimo's death, Torrio took over the helm of the operation, with Al Capone ascending as his right-hand man. It has been theorized that Capone played a big part in the conspiracy as well. Despite the allegations presented, none of the allegedly involved parties were ever charged in relation to the slaying. The Kraken. The Kraken. A creature as mysterious as the ocean depths from which it purportedly emerges, has fascinated humans for ages. Often depicted as a gigantic sea monster capable of sinking ships and devouring sailors, the Kraken's origins are deeply rooted in maritime folklore, particularly in Scandinavian mythology. One prevalent theory posits that the Kraken legend may have been inspired by sightings of giant squids. These elusive creatures, with their massive size and formidable tentacles, closely resemble descriptions of the Kraken. Before the giant squid was scientifically documented, sailors' encounters with such an astonishing creature could easily have been embellished into tales of a monstrous Kraken capable of catastrophic destruction. Another theory suggests that the Kraken stories could be based on observations of colossal squids, which are even larger than their giant counterparts and possess large, menacing eyes and massive hooks on their tentacles. The colossal squid's even more imposing size and fearsome appearance could contribute to the mythological image of the Kraken as an unbeatable monster of the deep. However, in my view, given the range of the colossal squid, primarily around the Southern Ocean, it isn't a good candidate for the Kraken. Additionally, some speculate that the Kraken tales could have originated from exaggerated accounts of real sea animal behaviors, such as whales or large schools of fish, which could create whirlpools or sudden turbulent waters, misinterpreted by sailors as the work of a monstrous creature. Joyeuse, the legendary sword of Charlemagne. Joyeuse, the legendary sword of Charlemagne, the first Holy Roman Emperor, carries a rich tapestry of history and myth. Celebrated in countless tales and historical accounts, Joyeuse is not just a weapon, but a symbol of power and divine kingship. According to historical records, Charlemagne wielded joyeuse in numerous battles that expanded and solidified his empire, which spanned much of Western Europe. The sword's name, meaning joyful in French, reflects its esteemed place in Carolingian lore and beyond, symbolizing victory and royal authority. The physical description of joyeuse, as it is known today, showcases a sword of exquisite craftsmanship. The current sword, preserved in the Louvre Museum in Paris, features a hilt added in the 10th to 13th centuries with gold and precious stones, suggesting modifications that reflect its continued importance through the ages. However, the authenticity of the joyeuse housed in the Louvre has been the subject of debate among historians and arms enthusiasts. Some argue that the original blade, forged in the 8th century, could not have survived over a millennium without significant alterations or replacements. Theories propose that the current joyeuse may be a composite of various parts assembled over the centuries, with the original components replaced or lost to time. This skepticism is fueled by the common practice in the Middle Ages of refurbishing and updating ceremonial weapons to maintain their symbolic power and aesthetic grandeur. Given the technological and material constraints of the period, as well as the sword's immense value as a regal insignia, it is plausible that joyeuse underwent transformations that leave today's version markedly different from Charlemagne's original blade. Moreover, the lore surrounding joyeuse, filled with miraculous feats and supernatural qualities, adds layers of myth that challenge historical veracity. The blend of fact and fiction surrounding the sword makes it difficult to discern the true history from embellished legend. The first video game. The title of first video game is subject to some debate, largely because it depends on how one defines a video game. However, I would propose that a video game needs a graphical display and some element of skill or input. Birdie the Brain is a notable early contender in the history of video games. Created in 1950 by Dr. Joseph Katz, Birdie the Brain was one of the earliest computer games and featured a tic-tac-toe game against an artificial intelligence. This game was showcased at the Canadian National Exhibition, making it one of the first instances where a computer game was demonstrated to the public. Birdie the Brain was a massive machine, standing over 4 meters tall, and was designed to showcase the capabilities of vacuum tube technology. While perhaps not as widely recognized as some other early games, Birdie the Brain represents a significant step in the evolution of interactive entertainment and the use of computers for gaming, marking an important milestone in the history of video games. OXO, released in 1952, was a tic-tac-toe game developed by Alexander S. Douglas for the EDSAC computer at the University of Cambridge. This game could be played against the computer and is considered by some to be the first graphical computer game. Tennis for Two, 1958. Often considered one of the first video games, Tennis for Two was created by physicist William Higginbottom. It was a simple tennis simulation displayed on an oscilloscope screen designed for visitors at the Brookhaven National Laboratory. Space War, released in 1962 and developed by Steve Russell and others at MIT, was one of the first computer games to gain what was, for the time, considered widespread popularity. Played on a PDP-1 computer, it featured 2 spaceships trying to destroy each other while avoiding a central gravitational well. However, in my view, the first video game is likely lost permanently to time, as it was likely programmed for the sole usage of one computer scientist, perhaps just to test briefly how an entertaining game would work on a computer. Esther Dingley. In November 2020, the disappearance of British hiker Esther Dingley in the Pyrenees Mountains between France and Spain sparked widespread attention and concern. Esther, an experienced hiker, was on a solo trek when she vanished without a trace, leading to extensive searches and media coverage. Her case not only captivated those following her travel blog, but also ignited a flurry of theories regarding her sudden disappearance. Months of uncertainty followed until, in July 2021, a tragic discovery was made. Esther Dingley's remains were found near the location where she last communicated with her partner. Despite the closure of confirming Esther's fate, the discovery raised more questions than it answered, fueling speculation and theories about what truly happened to her on that fateful trek. One prevalent theory suggests that Esther may have had an accidental fall. The Pyrenees are known for their treacherous paths and sudden weather changes, posing significant risks even to experienced hikers like Esther. This theory is supported by the fact that her remains were found in a remote area, which could indicate she veered off the main path and succumbed to a tragic accident. Another theory that emerged in the wake of her disappearance revolves around foul play. While less evidence supports this, the isolated nature of her trek and the delay in finding her remains have led some to speculate about potential encounters with dangerous individuals. Another theory, supported by her partner, is that she may have been accidentally slain by hunters active in the region, who, upon having committed this tragic mistake, covered it up. The mysterious death of Romulus. Romulus, a legendary figure, is generally hailed as the at best quasi-historical founder of Rome. According to Roman mythology, Romulus and his twin brother Remus were the sons of Rhea Silvia, a Vestal virgin, and the god Mars. Abandoned at birth and left to die, they were miraculously saved by a she-wolf who nursed them back to health. As they grew, so did their strength and ambition, eventually leading them to the site where Rome stands today. The twins wished to establish a city. However, a disagreement over its location led to Romulus slaying Remus, thus becoming Rome's sole founder in 753 BC. Romulus's reign was marked by significant achievements, including the establishment of Roman institutions, laws, and society's social structure. He is credited with creating the Roman Senate, forming the first legions of Rome, and significantly expanding the city's territory through both diplomacy and warfare. Under his leadership, Rome began its journey from a small settlement to a mighty empire. One of the most intriguing aspects of Romulus's story is his mysterious disappearance. Ancient sources provide various accounts of his end, each blending history with myth, leaving his fate open to interpretation. One popular theory suggests that Romulus was taken up by a storm or whirlwind, vanishing without a trace. This account often leads to the suggestion that he was deified, becoming a god. Another theory proposes that Romulus's disappearance was the result of a senatorial conspiracy. Dr. No, the Ohio serial slayer. This suspected serial killer's reign of terror over Ohio between 1981 and 1990 has left a dark shadow that persists to this day. Targeting women working as paid companions at truck stops and parking lots along Interstate 71, Dr. No's moniker emerged from an account of a survivor who noted that he was a regular nicknamed Dr. No. Dr. No is purported to have slain at least 9 women. However, the police suspect that he is responsible for a number of other slayings. In the investigation of the Dr. No slayings, several truckers were considered suspects over the years due to their possible connections to the crimes. Alvin Wilson, a trucker from Lake County, Ohio, was scrutinized in 1991 after evidence such as hair samples and credit card receipts linked him to the slayings, alongside an assault charge from 1990. However, he was never charged. Sean Patrick Goebel, arrested in 1995 for 2 murders, was investigated for additional crimes in multiple states, but was ruled out as a suspect in the Dr. No cases, as he was in the Army at the time, and records proved he was stationed far from Ohio. Finally, Delmas Colvin was arrested in 2005 for the slayings of 7 women working in the same profession as the Dr. No slayer targeted. However, despite admitting to 7 total slayings, he has adamantly denied involvement in these slayings. There is another theory of the case, however, and that theory is that the Dr. No slayings are not the work of a single individual, but rather the work of multiple people targeting women in a high-risk profession in the same geographic region. Our Lady of the Turning Eyes. Our Lady of the Turning Eyes is a mysterious event involving a statue, quote-unquote, coming to life. In the year 1643, amid the chaos of the 30 Years' War, French armies laid siege to Rottweil, a city within what is now Germany, but was then part of the Holy Roman Empire. Historical records from the Dominican order recount how 300 townspeople gathered in devout prayer before a statue of the Madonna and Child within their church. Witnesses on November 10th of that same year reported a miraculous event. The statue's complexion turned pale, its gaze lifted to the heavens before settling back on the city, and there were claims of it speaking. This remarkable event was attested by believers and skeptics alike, with both Catholics and Protestants claiming to have seen the event. 2 weeks later, a further miracle occurred when the statue's face took on a reddish hue. Tears seemed to flow from its eyes, and once more, its eyes moved. Simultaneously, a decisive battle unfolded at Tuttlingen nearby, where a united force of Imperial, Bavarian, and Spanish soldiers overwhelmingly defeated the French, relieving the siege. The miraculous turn of events in Rottweil, coupled with this military triumph, was attributed to the divine intervention of the Virgin Mary. Some have speculated the incident was a collective delusion, a mass hysteria event brought on by the extreme stress associated with the chaos of the 30 Years' War. Others have suggested that it was a legitimate miracle witnessed before hundreds. If you've enjoyed this video, I ask that you do me a huge favor and like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. I'm constantly cooking up new content for you to enjoy. Also, if you want to be a true Chad or Chadette, join the Patreon or Lazy Chill Zone YouTube membership club and check out the Discord. The links are in the description. Shout out to my patrons Noah Schubert, Kazak Cutie, and Kurt the Squirt. Until next time, stay healthy and peace out.